Welcome to the Mashpee School Committee meeting of December 12, 2018. We'll call the meeting to order at 5:32. And the first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next we have public comment, and I don't believe we have any. No? Thank you, Kathy. All right, next item on the agenda is the representative from the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, Roxanne Brown.
Good evening.
It doesn't amplify.
That's
It just goes into the
Yeah.
I know.
Okay, good evening.
Good
My
evening.
name is Roxanne Brown. I'm Education Director for the Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe, and I'm actually here to introduce the new Program Manager for the Native Youth Community Project, which is the project we have in common with the Mashpee School District as well as the Barnstable School District and our other three counties. This is Nancy Oakley Mills, and she's going to introduce herself and just kind of give you a little bit of a glimpse as to what's happening now with the program.
My name is Nancy Oakley Mills. Previously, I was a reading specialist and an English teacher, also an advanced placement English teacher. And I just recently took on this role about a month and a half, 2 months ago, to manage this grant, which is a grant to help 7th through 12th graders, natives, and as long as they're within one of our counties that we cover, they are welcome to our services. I have some information for you which I'll pass out, which tell you all about the challenges, the barriers, but also the areas for opportunity. Right now, our biggest barrier is getting information out to parents, guardians, grandparents, aunts, uncles, the caregivers of the children, because we do have a lot of services that we do offer. We do everything from academics, life skills, college and career planning, and then we also incorporate indigenous knowledge and teaching. One of the things right now we're doing is we are going to do an open house, an education open house on January 25th. We'll make a little more formal invitation for you other than this, but we would love for you all to join us. We're going to display a lot of the different programs that we have to offer, one of them being the NYCP grant. As of right now, I'm putting together a calendar that will cover for the rest of the school year. As of right now, we do tutoring Tuesdays and Thursdays after school here at MMHS, and then on Wednesdays, I'm currently working with elders and other people within the tribe to program in more of the indigenous practices and traditions and ceremonial teachings. I also brought our most current college trip schedule. We do group college trips. We also take trips over vacations to go see several different colleges at the same time. And we help students with everything from writing college essays, FAFSA, forms, you name it. But I wanted to say thank you for inviting us and for your support. You've already shown us a lot of support. You've already come out and visited us a couple of times, and that's just been absolutely fabulous. And we just look forward to your continued support, and we would love it if you have any suggestions or if there's anything that we're overlapping on that we could be more efficient or be more effective with, please reach out. We're there Monday through Friday, and we're here to help all our kids. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thanks,
Does
Nancy.
anybody have any?
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
I appreciate all the information.
And as she does that, I would just like to thank Patty for reaching out to the tribe for the before school care survey, because we're very excited. We hope we get a good response so that we do have to have this, and we're able to greet our children in the morning with some very positive activities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's good to hear from you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Next item is update on the Quaxton School renovation from Mary Kate O'Brien.
Those are topics.
Yes, we'll have a few other topics in there as well.
Oh, we've been very busy the last 2 days at Quashnet School. However, not with necessarily our renovation project. The renovations continue to proceed, and we're almost approaching completion. Again, I have to shout out to our staff for being so flexible, and to Brad Tripp and Catherine for always being there and supporting our communication with the construction company. A couple of things we've discovered in the last 2 days is that our school is airtight. We are not losing heat, and our HVAC system is working quite well, pushing air around our building. It has been a little harrowing, and but we are so happy, and I'm so proud of the Quashnet staff on the last 2 days to ensure the safety and the calm delivery of every student at Quashnet School. 503 students arrived home safely both days. Our staff rode buses with children. They helped make lunch and serve lunch at the Boys and Girls Club. They entertained students here at the high school. It has just been tremendous, and the support we've had from the fire department, the police department, from Boys and Girls Club, from Adventure Club, to ensure that our students are safe. Mrs. Loico's been instrumental in working with the bus company. I know this isn't construction update, but I think it's what you need to hear. It has just been over the top, the support we have had. And the whole administrative team has been right there every moment. So I so appreciate that. And it's just so overwhelming and wonderful when I get calls from families. I can help out, I can do this, I can take this child or this child I'm picking up for this family, and it's just been a tremendous town effort, really, to make sure all of our Quashnet kids have been safe, that our staff is safe. Very quickly, we had a quick acting staff member who pulled a fire alarm 2 days ago. All of the kids, everyone evacuated Quashnet School, and we stayed outside until the fire department deemed it was safe to come back in. So none of our students were exposed to the levels of fumes that were present in parts of our building, which was really great. And when we did go back in, a firefighter was assigned to the gym and held a monitoring device, so we were assured that that was a safe place to be. But when we knew it was time to get out, we had to move quickly, and I'm just so pleased how smoothly and how efficiently everyone worked together to ensure the safety of our kids, which is the priority. So, other than that, the windows are working fine and the doors are working fairly good. So, can I help with any questions?
Are we going to hear from the chief directly about what's going on now in terms of the current status?
So we did invite the facility supervisor, Brad Tripp, and he's here tonight, and then also Chief Rulo, and I think Deputy Chief Phelan is here as well to share some of their perspectives on what's happened in the last 2 days. And so I think if they could come up to join Mary Kate. Very nice. Yes. So why don't, Chief, you can share from your perspective sort of what your department did and whatever you think the public should know.
Other than what's been on the news, most of it's been on the news, but we obviously had the call. The original call came in from a pull station. I'm not even sure who pulled the alarm, but it was appropriate. The school was evacuated like it's supposed to be, just like we do for all our drills. It's fantastic. And Jack was actually, the deputy showed up first and was able to understand that there was an odor in the building. Once we figured that out, we were trying to pinpoint where that was. Since everybody was pretty much out of the building, Brad was there pretty quick helping us try to figure that out. And we thought we had the problem solved last night. One of the other plans that the superintendent and I have been doing over the past couple of years is once we have an incident where we've got this kind of weather, we try to find a place to secure those students as soon as possible. That way, we're not rushed to try to figure out the problem, and we can put the students in one safe place, which is what we did. We isolated the gym, left a firefighter in the gymnasium with a meter almost all the time, and we moved the children in there and the rest of the staff. So we thought everything was fixed, and then this morning I came in, and we think what happened was, to be brief, is that the systems in that building turn on pretty much at a certain time, which Brad can allude to, and that was probably about the time that I was there. I got elevated readings. Just wanted to make sure that those readings were really persistent, so we waited a few minutes, and they actually started climbing, and that's when we decided we were going to have to evacuate the whole building for the day. We stopped the kids just shy of coming off the bus, so we didn't have to deal with that. And then the rest of the day was spent with Brad trying to figure out the problem. Tomorrow, I will have a firefighter in the school from 8 o'clock until 5. That firefighter will be walking the halls of the school continuously with a meter, checking those levels all day long just to make everybody comfortable and to help put everybody at ease. We are planning on going in at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, and we're going to monitor the atmosphere at 5 tomorrow morning so that we give you ample time that if we do have a problem, you can get the cancellations much like you would for a storm, I believe. I think that's pretty brief from my end.
So, Chief, as of right now, then, are you saying that you're not seeing any levels of any kind of fumes or anything in the building?
Nope.
Okay.
We checked the building shortly. The deputy and I were there. The deputy was there for quite a few hours, and I was there for the last hour, and I think the superintendent was there and the principal was there. So we checked that school.
Mm-hmm.
We had 0 readings. We were satisfied with the explanation from the company. We used that, and not really to find out what the problem is, but to handle future problems in future buildings.
Yeah.
That's why we like to know pretty much, how they found the problem and what the resolve was. So.
All right, good, thank you.
So you're referring to the gas company then? When you?
Yeah, the boiler company.
Oh, the boiler. So was the boiler? That
Well,
was.
If you're done with me, I'll let Brad.
Okay.
He's probably got a lot to say.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom.
We called
Thanks,
in the
Tom.
town's boiler service company, Commercial Boiler Systems. They came in yesterday. We stayed into the night. As Chief mentioned, we ran the boilers for 3 or 4 hours without any readings. They did have to make some adjustments to the gas pressure on the boilers. For some reason, they were out of calibration, even though they were just serviced last week, which was puzzling to them. They had the boilers were serviced, everything was running fine, and then we run into this problem yesterday morning. So the gas pressure was too high on one boiler, which was causing it basically to not burn all the gas that was going into it, and then bringing the fumes into the building. So they made those adjustments. We fired the boilers probably from 7 o'clock, and they were fine-tuning them, and that's when I communicated with the superintendent that we've had no readings for the last 2.5, 3 hours. I think we're good to go. We stayed there till 10 o'clock, ran some more tests. I left at 10, went there in the morning at about 6:30, walked through with the meter that the fire department was graciously enough to lend me, the same type they use. I had all zeros on mine, so I was under the impression we were good to go. And then 45 minutes later, I get a call from deputy saying the chief is at the school, we got high levels, and I rushed over there, and that's when we shut things down. I called the boiler company again this morning. I was lucky enough that the 2 technicians that I had last night were on their way to Barnstable, so they just diverted to us. They're only 20 minutes away. So we went in, The thing I noticed right off the bat with the initial incident this morning was we have a boiler, an original boiler from 1970 whatever, when the building was built. And next to that boiler, there used to be 2 of those. In 1995, one of them was replaced with 2 of them, but the breaching was all kept together. We were getting flue gases coming back through the abandoned boiler, through that breaching, which shouldn't happen. You know, the flue gases are lighter than air, they should go up, so we figured that was the issue. We disassembled part of that boiler. We capped any openings or breaching, and then we fired our 2 boilers up again, and we didn't have any readings all day. So I know Chief said he was there the last hour, but you had a couple firefighters there. They kept making routine checks through there. They didn't get any readings all day. So once we fixed the breaching in that existing 1978 boiler, we didn't have any issues. And I cannot explain, the boiler company can't explain why all of a sudden after all this time we were getting flue gases through that boiler. The only theory we have is, as Mary Kate alluded to, was the new windows and doors. We have a much tighter building now, so the pressures are pretty exact, and you know, we're working on ways to make sure that it's not going to happen again. And as it stands now, and I said this last night, I said I think we're good to go, and knock on wood, I still think we're good to go for tomorrow.
Brad, is there is there CO monitors in the boiler room?
There is not.
Okay.
I don't believe it's required by code.
Okay.
The plumbing code, basically, because in boiler rooms you are going to have tough back every now and then, and you will get a lot of false alarms. What we did today, on the recommendation of the fire department, was I went down and put a CO detector in that boiler room, basically because we've been having issues with it.
Right.
So it's not tied to a central station. You just get out an alert. If somebody has an alert in that boiler room, then we'll know.
That's really to protect anybody who's in that boiler room
Right.
primarily, because what we don't want is someone to be working in that room and be overcome. Most CO detectors that you have are in your homes, and it's obvious because those are in there for when you're asleep, so that you can be woken up. Since we don't have anybody sleeping in the schools and in public buildings, generally speaking, we don't have them in there. And quite honestly, if you did have them in there, you'd be evacuating those schools constantly, because they would go off if they were in the vicinity of the boiler room. There might be some other measures that we can take. We'll look at some future measures to see, to be able to get an earlier warning. But typically, most schools and most public buildings, you do not find CO detectors in and amongst the boiler room area.
One of the safeguards too tonight is Brad reprogrammed the heating system, so it's simulating a day operation.
It's going to run in the occupied mode all night. So basically, like Mary Kate said, it's going to be like school was open all night, so we don't have that issue that we had this morning. I did run it late last night. I think I ran it till like midnight and then shut it down. And again, I went through this morning at 6 a.m. and had nothing. So.
When's the system set to kick on in the morning?
Well, the boilers run, especially this time of year, they'll be running 24/7 because it's based on outdoor air. We don't want any freeze-ups, the pumps and everything else. The univents, which are in the classroom, I believe they start at 5 a.m. The administrative offices stagger based on their occupancy, but usually about 4 or 5 a.m. You know, there's all different systems that start at different times.
I think I'm just, you know, the nerd brain's going on over here. The whole differential pressure stuff with opening and closing the doors at 7 o'clock this morning. You have to wonder if some of that was part of it.
I think part of it is in the kitchen they have an exhaust fan. When they come in and they turn that fan off, which is a rather large fan, now you've got that fan sucking air.
Yep.
And that is right next to the boiler room, so that is part of the theory. We think that might have drawn a negative pressure on the boiler room. So.
Interesting. Cool. All right, thank you.
Is anybody else?
I had heard, and I can't remember where, that there were a few staff members that were treated or that were not feeling well
Three staff members the
Three.
first day
Okay,
were evaluated, one went to the hospital.
okay. And how is that person doing now?
We normally, once we take them to the hospital, we don't have any interaction
Uh,
with them after that.
She was released and she's fine.
I was more asking Mary Kate. I figured she might know.
Oh, okay.
When you-
Some kind of pet hair.
The one staff member was released today, the other two were not kept in the hospital. We did have several staff members go today to the emergency room, 3 in Falmouth, 1 in Cape Cod. They do have slight elevations in their blood, but
First I heard of it.
we did have one student who did go down to Falmouth emergency room who was clear. There was absolutely no exposure to the students. And what we know today, we got students out of that building and were not allowed in, so they were not exposed at all.
Well, I was in the cafeteria before I found the elevated levels with the kids that went there, that's the kids club.
Adventure Club in the morning.
Yeah, there was nothing in there, it was completely zero. And even, it was zero when I walked into the kitchen. It was only, that's why we're pretty sure it was a developing situation when I got there. So we cut it off pretty quick.
I guess the only other question that I have is not really for you, but for the superintendent, in regard to the communications that went out to parents and the notifications. It seemed like today worked much better than yesterday.
So in respect to that particular aspect of this event, when we are involved in the moment, our priority is student safety, staff safety, and when students are at school, we are supervising them, and every student was safe. So in the moment when we are planning and determining what our action steps are going to be, it is not always a parent phone call that is a priority at that time. So I did send a quick text once or an email once the students were in the gym yesterday. But then I was having problems from my phone being able to do our school messenger system in a way that I could voice it and send it through the phone. And in fact, it kept saying failure to send, and eventually I went back to my office, and at that time, buses were pulling out. But what parents need to understand is we will never leave a student unsupervised, even when they were taken home. Now, some students, there was one student in particular who got off with a group, and so there are little glitches, but the intent is, and the direction to every bus driver was not to let a student off if there wasn't an adult to pick them up, and they were to come back to the middle high school where they were well supervised. So I really want parents to understand that, like any normal school day, we have supervision, we have your children safe. We may move them, but we still have them safe. We don't want parents in the situation yesterday as well as today overreacting and showing up to a school site when, based on the opinion of the emergency responders, it's not necessary at that point. So I think the school campus was kept safe. The students were safe. How inconspicuous that is.
Yeah, exactly.
So can we do things better? Absolutely. We're going to debrief on this probably on Friday, and we have a list of things. But it's not always as easy as parents think to send that quick phone call, and that is not our priority sometimes in the moment when we are keeping students safe. So we did our best. Last night we tried to communicate as well. We will send a communication out tonight in terms of what we're going to do tomorrow, and we're going to make that decision tonight, Principal O'Brien and myself. So we did the best we can, and that's all.
It was important to keep students calm,
Yep.
and the staff calm, and we were communicating continually to ensure that we could give the best information to the staff so we knew what to do next. And it's being calm in that moment. I think it was frustrating. I think our biggest fear were some of our students who didn't have their cell phones with them. But that it was in the moment. We had to, at that point, move kids quickly and safely. And it was, like Superintendent DeBoer said, it's a priority to keep them safe and get them where they need to be.
And I do want to acknowledge Principal O'Brien. You know, when you have 503 roughly students in a gymnasium, who had just been in the cold for 20 to 25 minutes. They all listened to her, they responded to her, the staff they listened to their teachers well, everybody was kept safe. So sometimes when parents show up with sometimes misinformation, or they've added in their mind because they're worried, and I always want to try and wear my parent hat, but it does not contribute to maintaining a safe and calm environment. And there, but I do wear the parent hat, so I understood where some parents were coming from who were quite upset with our handling of the situation. But student safety does come first, and we had everything under control.
So really, the one thing I want to say about this is really kind of two pieces to this whole thing, and I do want to definitely acknowledge the great work that Chief Rulo and his staff did, and Mr. Tripp did with his staff, and also the staff from Quashnet and the administration. At least safety is the most important thing, right? We want to make sure the kids are safe, get the kids out, and that was handled extremely well. And I'm sure everybody's grateful for that. And then we have the communication piece that, obviously there were some hiccups in. We have a lot of lessons to learn there. We know you tried your best. There were some ideas thrown around. Obviously, we're not here to micromanage how you do things, but there were some ideas thrown around maybe that the superintendent doesn't necessarily handle putting out that message because you're busy worrying about the safety of the kids. Maybe that gets put on somebody else to get that message out. Different things that would need to be explored here. That is definitely a piece that we need to look at, and something that was sort of an issue. And going forward, I'm sure we can work through that. But I do want to stress the fact that obviously the most important thing is that those kids were safe, and with 0 instances of anybody being, severely hurt, injured, or anything like that is great. So, thank you.
So I would just add. I would just add. The reason I brought this up was with everything that was going on. I only saw one email from a parent who had a concern in regard to the communication. So I think that's a pretty small sample, but one is important. It's important for us to learn from when these episodes happen. It's not something that we anticipate happening on a regular basis. Knock on wood, Brad. And so, I commend you to debriefing and taking away the importance of this as a learning event from a emergency response perspective. And I think you guys did a very commendable job. So thank you.
George.
Thank you.
He's raised his hand 3 times.
You want to say something, George?
Yes, I can see now. Thank you both to the fire department and the facilities for everything that you did in aiding the school. I just have a question based upon my technical ineptness. I got this this messenger thing that you're talking about. Is that similar to a robocall?
Yes, it's what we use when we cancel for snow days. It can be done through a phone, or it can be done as an email.
Okay, it can be done through a phone.
You can, yes. You
Is
can
it
make
automatic, like when I get the messages from the town, for whatever it happens to be, it's an automatic call from the town?
It's similar to that. Similar
Okay,
to
is that the same system that we have? What's the difference with Messenger and their system, I guess?
Ours is a school-based system that accesses our database. It's not connected into the same as the town. The town's database is all the residents. Similar, though. Sometimes the disappointment that some parents have in not receiving, whether it's a phone call or an email, is they don't have up-to-date information in the Power School for their student, or there's multiple parents or caregivers that need to make sure they're all on the list to be able to get notice. Usually it goes to a primary designated receiver, and you have to make sure that everyone you want to get that message is marked that way. So some of that, and we do have a lot of parents that we still need some updating of the student records. It's an automated process and not necessarily, we try to keep getting everyone to update theirs. But sometimes that's a little bit of a glitch, but we'll look at that too as well.
Okay.
Seems like if we had a full-time outreach coordinator who could keep our database current and be maybe tasked with crisis communications, that would be very useful, maybe in a situation like this.
I think it's also really important to reinforce in the new age of all our cell phones, it's too easy just to hit that contact. Our students need to be taught their parents' phone numbers. They need to know their addresses. And this was a complication for us. Our students are not all aware of that. And they know how to call their parents on their own cell phone. But they need to know their parents' phone number. And I just want to stress that please take the time. What is your address? Where do you live? What bus are you on? And those parent phone numbers. Because and our staff was actively, we were having our students call families directly with our cell phones. But at one point, we lost power.
Yes, that was
not
a complication
yesterday, so we couldn't get on our Wi-Fi to get those numbers. And when our kids don't know parents' numbers, it's really problematic. And in a grade 3 through 6 building, you would think that wouldn't be much of an issue, but it is, and I think it's a cell phone issue. But please teach your children where they live and their cell phone numbers. Your cell phone.
And in some cases, families don't always know what their child's bus number is, so when they came to pick up a student that had been dropped off here, and we'd say, well, what bus were they on? Because we knew which buses had already come back after their run. They don't have that information. But it is hard today because we live in an immediate world of information, and so there's little to no tolerance for not this immediate, why didn't you tell me right away this was happening, even though in the moment everything was under control, everyone was safe. It didn't need to be that way, but that's the culture we live in. Everyone expects immediate notification. So we'll have to figure out how to make sure we can do better at that.
Yeah. I have to agree with, I think, what everybody said. Overall, I think I'm just so grateful, one, to live in a community like Mashpee that is just so nicely sized for something like this to happen. I mean, that we have only 3 schools and that our kids were able to be diverted and that, and the way that you guys are just literally a minute away and can be there on site to help out. And just the way everybody stepped up. And I wanted to note that, you had heard some of the criticisms about the things that happened yesterday when we had to do that reactive kind of dismissal, and you addressed some of those today. Because my first thought was like, oh, how are we going to know if kids have someone at home? Like, how does a bus driver know that? Mm-hmm. And, I noted that you said today that teachers were riding the buses with kids and knocking on doors, and I thought, well, gosh, that's above and beyond. I mean, I think that's amazing. So just thanks to you and your staff and you guys, and certainly you guys, and I hope that I hope everything goes well tomorrow. But I also just on behalf of my 2 children at home, I have to find out, how are these days treated on the academic calendar?
So yesterday probably will be fine. Today will have to be addressed at some point for the Quashnet school.
It'll count as a day missed for the Quashnet school.
It will have to be made up.
Okay.
But we'll figure that out. And I don't know whether Principal Bryan did reference yesterday at the Boys and Girls Club fed those students that went there. The children that went to the Coombs School were fed by the Coombs School. The children that came, and the bulk of the children were up here, had a full lunch provided by this kitchen. And then even later on, when there were still some students that were getting ready to, I don't know where that group was going at the end of yesterday, Principal Balistracci brought over another tray that had hamburgers and fruit and all kinds of stuff in it for all of the kids that were still left behind, and the staff. And then today, Andy Troyanos brought down the strings, and they played a Christmas carol and also Charlie and the Chocolate Factory song to a whole group of students as they were, just into this gymnasium. So it felt, and we had the therapy dog here too, it just felt really like they were in a little pillow of support, because the teachers were phenomenal, the counselors were there, so if a student appeared stressed, they had many people there to help them through it. So just really an amazing group of people work for the Quashnet School. And every other school too.
They certainly do. To ride those buses today, it was one request and they just flooded Coombs and got on those buses and rode with the kids, and to get off of the bus, knock on the front door to make sure our kids are safe. Right? It's just commendable on every level.
Last thing I just want to say on this too is, you know, with everything going really great safety-wise, I still want to stress not getting away from, because we got lucky this time, and I know in this day and age with schools and things that can happen, we really want to take this opportunity to learn everything we possibly can from this moment. So for any future events, we are well prepared, because, like I said, we got lucky, everybody's safe, everything's good, and we've been handed a gift in trial and error. So,
Good plans.
yes, well, yeah.
Plans in place.
But post-mention happens on any event.
It does actually, yes.
We had really good plans, because we do need
Yeah.
all the first responders with the school, and we have plans.
Yes, yeah. Of course.
That's what's wonderful. But yes, you can.
It's a school environment, always a learning environment.
Oh my
So,
goodness, right?
all right, thank you. Does anybody else have anything?
Thanks for
No,
coming.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Kate.
It's nice to look like we had a crowd for a second.
Just to add, part of Mary Kate's section was you have 2 flyers about 2 open houses coming up for Quashnet. One is a special guest open house on the 4th at 9 a.m. That is a by invitation event to see the renovations and have the guided tour that Principal O'Brien is so phenomenal at giving. The second one is a community open house. That's January 9th at 6 p.m. and we'll be publicizing that in as many locations as we can, including the Mashpee Enterprise, to encourage community members to attend. Most of the parents have seen some of the changes, but we really want the community in, so just an FYI.
Thank you. All right, anything else on that item? If not, we're going to move on. Next, we have the 2018 Mashpee MCAS. Is that going to be Dr. Hanscom?
Yeah.
Be presenting on that?
Nothing follows, gas leak like MCAS.
Make sure you get the mic there.
Yes.
Okay. So I am in your packet. I think it's backwards in your packet. Mine starts MCAS 2018 Accountability System, and then the slide after that has like a blue banner on the top and says non-high schools.
Our first is Quashnet.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's out of order.
Oh.
So I think it's Quashnet High School and then the overview, but we're going to actually start with the overview.
Oh.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't have your packet in front of me, just my slides. Does that make, just let me know when you're good.
No?
This is the best part of the meeting. So this year, okay, sorry.
sorry.
No.
Just
It
give me
looks
1
like,
So we,
Page 10.
wow.
just page 10 comes forward, or this
Everything
whole
after
section?
page 10.
Whole section.
Okay, all right.
Go to page 10, that's where she starts.
It starts MCAS 2018 Accountability System. But if you go to the next slide, it says
goes-
Massachusetts Accountability Indicators Non-High
10 to
Schools.
19.
Is it not in color?
It's in
It is.
color.
Oh, okay, good. I have made beautiful colors, so it all
It is.
aligns.
Fantastic.
All right, are we ready?
Yeah, it is 19.
It's okay if you're
Yes.
not.
Yes.
All right. So we have a new accountability system because the old one was just super user-friendly and easy to understand, and so we needed to modify that. But no, in fact, we have a new test. And so with the new test, the next generation MCAS, there's a new system. They're weighting things a little bit differently, and they're including things in the accountability system due to the Every Student Succeeds Act that they have to. They're federally mandated to cover. So I'm just going to go over the indicators, the different ways that it's being weighted, and I don't remember what else I'm doing, but it's what makes up the criterion, and then very quickly what our scores were across the board, and then the principals can talk a little bit more specifically about their particular schools. So the first slide, looking at non-high schools, they are now looking at achievement, student growth, English language proficiency, and then they had to choose an additional indicator from a menu from the federal law. So that's that left column. The way it's weighted depends on whether or not you have a large enough subgroup of English learners to, if you have 20 or more in that group of students. So you can see I've highlighted with ELs, with English learners, because this non-high schools for us is grades 3 to 8, and we do have 20 or more English learners in that group. So that is in fact weighted. So 60% of our accountability is on their achievement, 20% is on their growth, and those are the same from the last system. We used achievement and growth in the last system completely. Now we're adding English language proficiency for some reason at whatever time of night, I can't say that word. And that is students who are identified as English learners, their progress on meeting English proficiency as measured by their assessment, which is called the Access Test. They take that in January. Our English language education teachers administer it. It's an online assessment. So that is 10% of our weight. And then the additional indicator that DESE chose from the menu given by the U.S. Department of Ed was chronic absenteeism. So chronic absenteeism is the percentage of students missing 10% or more of days of school from grades 1 to 12. That is very different. First of all, that we're looking at absenteeism. Second of all, that we're looking at, oh, sorry, Mr. LaBelle, we're looking at KCC now. There are things at KCC that actually count towards our accountability. That has not been the case in the past. And that's a good thing. And the reason they did that is because, well, there's a few reasons why they say they did it. But one is that they wanted, if you're chronically absent in K and 1 and 2, it's a cumulative effect on your ability to achieve in school. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute because I really wish Fox 25 was still here so I could plea to families to understand the effects of absenteeism on their child's learning and on our district as a whole. Whether it's a child is sick and they have a note from the doctor, they're still absent. They don't care. So they're looking at time with education services. If a student has a hospitalization and is receiving tutoring from the school in the hospital, they are considered present for this model. But a vacation, going to the orthodontist, a physical, whatever, strep throat, it doesn't matter, it counts. So it starts counting at 20, when a student has been with us for 20 days, that's when they start considering chronic absenteeism or not, and it's 10% of however many days the student has been with you.
A question on that, Hope.
Yeah.
So as far as tardy, early dismissals, all that, at what point does it count against us? So if a child is a dentist appointment, for example, and they're out for 2 hours,
Yep.
Does that count towards absenteeism, or at what point does that?
What they said at the state, I don't want to speak to tardies and dismissals explicitly yet because we're still actually, when the alarm rang on Tuesday, Monday, whatever, Tuesday, we were actually having a discussion at the admin table just about this very issue, about what we're considering with tardies and absent. And but what the state says is 50% of your day or more.
Okay.
That's how they're considering presence. How we're sort of coding that is a different. Sorry.
You mentioned there was a menu for these additional indicators that DESE chooses. Is DESE going to keep rotating
No,
those?
no, this is it. Well, I mean, until the system changes again.
Until the system changes. So
But
we're always going to be
it's
judged
always,
on.
and the reason they did that too was because of the really strong data that indicates the connection between absenteeism and low achievement and the issues with subgroups and absenteeism and sort of that equity piece that we're what they say, we're number one for some in Massachusetts, but certainly not for all because we're not reaching the subgroups the way that we should.
What are some of the other subgroups? Just
so
information?
English learners, low socioeconomic status, racial, different races,
Wow.
special education, high needs is kind of all of those put together, but those are the ethnicities get broken down depending on how many students you have, but you need to have 20 in a subgroup to have that reported. But regardless, they're looking at all of that data.
Okay.
And there's a recent report that came out that showed some shockingly disturbing results when you look at subgroups, not in Mashpee, I don't mean to say statewide, across the Commonwealth. Okay?
Thank you.
So this is non-high school. So again, this includes Quash and the middle school because we are considered a middle school and a high school in terms of the state. The next slide looks at the high schools, middle high schools, K-12 schools, but as I said, although we are Mashpee Middle High School in one building, for the purposes of reporting, we are two different schools. So this is 9 through 12. We do not have enough students in our English, who are English learners in this 9 through 12 to have a subgroup. So our weight is without ELs. So now you get to learn the system both ways, which is pretty cool. So for 10th grade or for 9th and 10th really, which is where we take MCAS at the high school level now, 47.5% is achievement, 22.5% is growth, and those are the ones we had before. High school gets an additional indicator, so they're looking at high school completion, the 4-year cohort, the extended engagement rate, and the annual dropout rate. All of those together make up 20%. And I feel like that was true before, or no? Yes, that was also part of it before. The English language proficiency is not relevant for our population currently, but if it was, that's where it would be. And then they're looking at 2 additional indicators for the high school. Chronic absenteeism, grades 1 through 12 is one, but then the percentage of 11th and 12th grade students completing advanced coursework, which can mean AP, it can mean dual enrollment. That's really the primary things that we offer that would fall into that. What we feel is frustrating is that it's only 11th and 12th graders, and we have 9th graders taking AP classes, and they do not get counted in this.
Do they look at non-traditional career paths for that?
For counting advanced coursework?
For the advanced coursework?
If we had like a Project Lead the Way, that would probably count, but primarily what we have currently are the APs and the dual enrollment with Cape Cod Community College.
Right.
And we have several kids involved. We're writing a grant where that might get expanded, but that's Friday's work.
It'd be interesting if we could find a way to do that so we're not,
That's
the
the
people
goal.
that are doing the alternatives don't get left out.
Yeah.
And really, they want kids, they're not looking at the scores on the APs, although we want our scores obviously to be high. It's that equity piece again of making sure that subgroups are having access to those classes.
Yeah.
They're having access to rigorous college level classes because the data shows that that gets them to finish college, because so much of our data is about getting them into college, but they're not finishing. And that's, I think, what they're trying to capture with this.
But, I'm sorry. go ahead.
Sorry, this was longer than I thought.
In
so
that,
sorry.
in that context then, so advanced placement only refers to what is considered to be an advanced placement
AP
course
is the
for
thing.
college credit.
It's an AP like it's a brand.
Yeah.
Like it's got a little R or something.
So
and
there's
it's
not, any of that CTE stuff or the certifications for the things that might be that we offer that are above and beyond. That
It depends.
could constitute an advanced skill
No.
at a high school level. Does not.
currently no. So that's
Wait,
how.
Don.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Don.
Quick question.
Sure.
So those 2 items,
It's too bad.
absenteeism and advanced coursework, that represents 10%. Is that split
the conferences.
equally?
They have said yes.
All these
So
changes.
only 5%.
Yes.
If only we get like
That
50%
that is what they have said.
Yeah.
I haven't seen those numbers, but that's how they've reported it. All right. So those are the 2. Tonight we're going to look at 2 different models primarily, and so you have sort of the framework for those. The next slide is just, again, my plea to families. It's just an infographic that shows that those kids with high attendance, 95% of them graduate in 4 years. And those kids who are chronically absent, only 66% graduate in 4 years. And that's just, I liked that, you can't see it, people, sorry, but it has little people representing 1% of 58,524 students, but they're people, and that's the piece that was really important to me. These are kids, and just coming to school makes a ginormous difference in their expected outcomes. And so I'm going to just look at the camera and say that several times because it's so important. The next slide, so they're looking at our data in 2 ways. They're getting normative data, which is that percentile that we've been getting for years. So it's like we both take the test. Patty is District A, I'm District B. She scores 99 percentile, all proficient or advanced, or meeting or exceeding, and I score 76 percentile because, whatever. We compare to just other schools in the Commonwealth. That's the normative piece. The criterion reference, there's another whole slide on this that I'm going to really show you the actual detail of, but it's progress towards targets. We had that before as well. The targets have changed somewhat, and they're more, well, just look at the next slide. There's a lot of boxes. So the criterion reference components, so you've got your non-high schools in blue, and then your high schools in red, so I put them all on one. It gives a whole bunch of criteria, the scaled scores, your achievement, your growth, and then the check boxes tell you if that counts towards the criterion score, towards meeting targets. What I want you to know from this that I think is very different and very, very important, and goes back to that equity piece, is you look at, there's 2 columns for each. There's 2 columns for 9 high schools and 2 for high schools. They are looking at the lowest performing students as half of what they consider for your progress towards your targets. And then the other 50% is all students, which includes the lowest 25%. So the lowest 25% of our students are counted 62.5% in our progress towards meeting targets. So what that tells us is that they want our focus to be on the lowest 25% of our kids and moving them closer to proficiency. That's what, I mean, the system tells us that, but Rob Curtin at DESE also very, very clearly says that, which is how this is set up. I know I'm giving you a lot of information, so just stop me if you want, but I'm going to keep going if that's okay.
Except science.
Science.
In 9 high schools.
Because you only take it in 5th and 8th. So you don't compare those cohorts. They don't look at growth or in science because you're not taking it consecutively.
No, I mean, but they're doing it for all students, but they're not doing it for the lowest performing students.
They're doing it. Oh yeah, that's a good point. I think it's because no, I know why. I know why this one.
Oh, good.
Because they take last year's lowest.
I'm glad I submitted this question to you in advance.
So the way they take your lowest 25% of students is last year's scores. So for
I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying? So there are no last year scores for science.
Yeah.
I love when I actually know an answer.
Me too.
I know, right? So on the next slide, you can see the blue on the left are the districts that don't require assistance or intervention. Right now, there's 2 categories: meeting targets, which is 75% or higher towards meeting your targets, and then partially meeting, which is 0 to 74%. Okay, 0, I'm waiting for Nicole to like throw something at me because that doesn't make sense. This first year, that is where they are placing it, partially meeting, because it is the first year of this new system. It will likely be 25 to 75, 25 to 75% will be partially, and then the others will be lower. But because we don't have a system where we don't have a year of using this, we can't,
We don't know where the
there's no
bottom
calibration. So that's what that is. The other thing that Rob Curtin, who's kind of in charge of the system from DESE, said is he would like to add an improving school category to this blue side, which is the good side where you want to be, which would be 50 to 75%. Mashpee this year came out at 61% progress towards meeting our targets, which is partially meeting targets. But if we had that new system, it would be improving towards targets. We are moving in a good direction, which is good, towards closing gaps and improving our subgroup scores.
I just want to confirm. So the leveling system went away. There's no
Oh,
more
there's a
levels.
slide on
1,
this.
2, and 3.
You cannot consider this
Yep.
in relation to that at all, and I'll talk about that in a sec. Don?
We'll wait until you talk about it.
Okay. Nicole?
See, when I first heard about this, we first got briefed on this, I was like, oh, this is just like our report cards.
No.
But it's not.
No.
Because the meeting would be, there's no exceeding. There's no, you can't do better than.
For the state,
Right.
for the district or school, correct. For a kid, there is.
Right.
For students, you get your scores for your kids who are 3 to 8, not high school last year was still the old model. You had exceeding, partially, you had exceeding, meeting, partially meeting, or not meeting, but not for this, no. Because you either meet it or you know, that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
They do have, oh, I'm sorry. This is categorization of districts. I'm taking a district perspective for you. There is another categorization of schools that had schools of commendation. They had schools of note who either made significant progress towards their targets or hit, I think it was 90% or higher, or 95, I can't remember. But I'm just doing the district right now, and they don't have that model for the district.
Gotcha.
Can I ask?
Yeah, please.
So I'm interested how to get from blue to red. So if we're at 0,
Yep.
we're not. This is District W. If we're at 0, and we have low graduation rate, we're going to be red?
Yes.
What if we have 90 and low
Doesn't matter.
graduation rate?
So there is a town nearby that
Yeah.
ended up being requiring assistance or intervention because of a subgroup not meeting the participation requirement. And that's just
and I was
it.
going to ask my next question. Participation in what?
In the MCAS, in the either access or the MCAS. It depends on what it is they're measuring, but both of those.
So if we got a huge cohort of parents that hate the test,
we will be requiring
we
assistance.
could be going to focused targeted support from the state.
Absolutely, we could.
That's very new, right?
They've always, participation rate was always part of
It was always part, but it wasn't an automatic
it wasn't
go to
like
jail,
penalized,
go
right?
directly
Yeah.
to jail
Yeah.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
The broad comprehensive support, they did not add any districts this year to. In fact, I think one or two came out. And then the focused or targeted support, again, you had 0 to 74 partially meeting targets, so clearly none of that was in the focused or targeted support this year. It was the low graduation rate and low participation that would have put you in that this year.
Interesting.
So even if your percentage was 45, you would still be blue
This year,
this year?
yes.
Okay.
Unless you had low participation.
Unless
yeah,
you were-
Correct, I'm sorry, yes.
And from my understanding, and you probably know more on this from what I read on that on my own, one of the reasons they implemented that was in response to some districts, not ours, kind of leaving some of the lower performing students out of MCAS on purpose to sort of pad their numbers.
Really? Well, I don't read that newspaper,
Yeah.
so I don't know
So,
about that.
Yeah, I've seen some of that happening.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's called
Well-
the Scholastic Inquirer.
No, seriously. So that's where we fell. The next slide is the do nots, okay? So you cannot compare accountability data from 2018 to historical data. The percentiles you can't compare, the performance against targets you can't compare. The reason is the additional indicators, there are fewer years of data, and they're different comparison groups. So if Rob Curtin wanted you to know anything, it was please do not try to compare the accountability data. However, you also can't equate accountability data from 2018 or categories with historical accountability and assistance levels. So for example, you can't say, okay, we were a level 2 and now we're partially meeting, and it's the same thing. It's not. It's just not. They don't mean the same thing. They're not based on the same indicators. It's like just not. And he was very clear. Oh, no, you weren't there that day. Very clear on that. So that was, I got a question, or Patty got a question, but I jumped into it this morning from Don about like where it's the historical data, and it's very purposefully not given to you because
very purposefully.
Very for grades 3 through 8 because it doesn't pertain.
That being the case, how do we evaluate whether we're making progress or not?
We have lots of ways that we do that, but MCAS this year is not one of them.
So what are the other tools then that would be available?
We
to
have
the
our
committee to be able to see that?
Well, I think our graduation rates, I think our attendance rates, I think our scores on STAR we're measuring, and I think there's a whole slew of things. It depends on really what your questions are. So I think I would need to hear from the committee, what are your questions? Because just progress is we do a lot of things here, and I would want to know, like, do you want to know reading progress or ELA progress in the elementary level? We could do all sorts of things on that.
So
But it's not going to be through MCAS.
Are you saying that you have been using our MCAS results to evaluate our district's progress? You personally?
So in the past, this committee has been given a matrix showing how various grades are performing in regard to MCAS across time, so that you can see where they were at this point and then where they are at a latter stage in their school career. And we've been able to see, particularly when we had lower ratings, that we were making progress and that those scores were improving. Now that that tool is not available, what I'm asking is, what's available to replace that for the committee to see, and also the town and the parents to be able to similarly see how we're progressing or not.
Right. Yeah. So my answer is it's not going to be through this year, but next year it will certainly be. They will have some. Now, the statistician next to you is like, what do you mean it's only 2 years? And we all had asked Rob Curtin that question, but he feels very strongly that there's some special math that will allow us to do that next year. For this year,
Special math.
for this year,
Do we offer that class here right now?
ask Skylar, do we offer
Not
special
math.
math to like do crazy numbers? I don't know. Mrs. Brody would know. For this year, I think, you know, the reports you get from the principals are, and the reports that families get from parent-teacher conferences, from the report cards, those are going to be your best bet. And then looking at this, not comparing it, but we can look at how we did, and the teachers and, you know, they have done item analysis. We've looked at our lowest 25% of kids, and we have action plans to meet where they fell down. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things we can do. I'm giving you a lot of answers to not your question at all.
So, in the past, we've had something relatively.
No, I totally get that. I just don't think you're gonna.
straightforward,
You can track
and we can track it. So you're saying that's not available anymore.
Correct.
So all I'm asking is, what do you feel you would be able to provide the committee? I'll leave it in your hands but that would show us a similar type of information.
I think we have to talk about it as a team, because it really, go ahead, I mean, I don't know.
Well, and I don't know what the principals are going to share with you tonight, but there are, you know, the staff is diving into all of the data that we have, and there will be things that you can look at. You might have to make some assumptions that if this percentage of students were proficient or above, you can't match the categories, but you could maybe find a comfort level in saying, well, I would hope that this meant this percentage was hitting and meeting or exceeding. So
And
they're
I think
working on
if you look at
things
the
like
next
that, but-
slides, it does tell you where kids are. So, I mean, I hope that that would be helpful. Is it going to tell you where they grew? No, it's just not. But it's going to tell you where they are. So on that first one, grades 3 to 8, you can see the ELA, the percent of our district, and I struggle to compare to the state because I want to be so much higher than the state. But it is a good sort of barometer. So you can see where we fell and where the state fell for exceeding, meeting, partially meeting, and not meeting in ELA and math. Science is still a legacy model, so they're still using proficient, advanced proficient needs improvement or warning failing. And we can't get historical data on science because, as we've discussed, they don't take it every year.
So Hope, these categories haven't changed though, correct? These, as far as the MCAS reporting?
For ELA and math, this is our second year for these categories? For 3 through 8?
Yeah.
It used to all be advanced proficient needs, but for 2 years, in 3 through 8, it has been
So
exceeding.
to partially answer what Don's looking for,
Yeah.
couldn't we just look at these categories historically?
No, because the test is different. The test has been modified.
So I want to jump on that. So do we do standards-based evaluations in Casey Coombs as well?
Standards-based evaluations
the
or
report cards.
Yes.
So we have standards-based evaluation by number raw data from 1 through 6, do we not?
That's what's
Up
reported
until
on.
when we started that, which was, I don't know, was that 4 years ago or?
That precedes me.
Yeah, but it's been a good enough chunk of time that we should be able to very easily see a cohort progress, right?
I don't know how easily it is because I don't know that.
That would have to probably be something generated out of Power School by standard, and you can see the number of students who are hitting 4.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand the lingo, but are you talking about our own?
I'm talking about
grade-
our own data, so our own grading, it's all,
I mean-
it should be attached to standards, and we should be able to
Yeah.
pick the standards that match what we think's important.
I mean, I think to address your concern, what I would suggest is that you tell us what you think we should be looking at, come up with something in the absence of this, but I cringe every time we use MCAS to decide something in our district. We should be looking at our data. This is one test on one day by, it's just a flawed method of evaluating how we're doing as a district. We have these people sitting at the table nodding their heads know how to evaluate our kids. They're in charge of it. Let's look at our own data and let Massachusetts, this is what we have to do to play in Massachusetts. That's great. And I'm proud to live in one of the states with the best public education in the country. That's great too. But I really don't care about it. I care about Mashpee. So.
But I think we could also use the STAR.
I was going to say
data.
STAR, I know we
We've
have.
got STAR,
very good STAR
reading,
data.
STAR math, but I just think the principals have to be a part of that conversation. So if you're looking reading.
I'm not putting you on the spot.
No,
I
not
just
you know,
know,
but
yeah.
I'm saying if you're saying ELA and math, how are these kids doing? We can definitely do that. We just got to sort of figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, that was what was
hold on one
provided to this committee historically.
Mhm.
So,
That's
in the
before I was-
absence of that, to Jeff's point, putting back on you, come back with how we
Yeah.
should look at this,
Mhm.
not in, because I'm concerned, I'm looking at a single snapshot to Nicole's point. Yeah, was the kid good that day or not so good that day? I don't know, but if that's not a true measure of how we ought to be looking at them and a fair representation, then come back to us with how we should be able to do that so that we can see it and also, that we can sing our praises hopefully for how everyone is performing in our schools.
Yeah.
Okay?
Skyla wanted to
Oh,
add
yeah.
something.
You wanna-
Yeah, so with STAR, ever since 7th grade, I've been having the same exact questions every single time because in 7th grade I scored the highest score, and ever since then nothing has changed, but my reading level has. So I've been scoring 12.9 since September of 7th grade, but I have grown since then, so it's not really portraying that accurately. And last year, and it's like that for my friends too, we're all just getting the same questions every time and we just don't care about it anymore because it's the same thing. Last year, I did take my ELA MCAS, but I had a concussion around the time of math and science MCAS, so I didn't end up taking either of those. But because I had worked so hard throughout the year, I was still able to go into biology honors this year, and it just shows that MCAS doesn't really show your progress because throughout the year, you working hard shows your progress.
Appreciate it. That's really, actually very good insight
you.
and
I'm
information.
going to go ahead and defer my position to
Thank
Skylar.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I needed to say
Do I have a
anything
motion
that,
to
right?
adjourn?
And, yeah, exactly.
So moved.
I know, Kathy, it was not 8 minutes. The last slide is just the overall results for grade 10. And you'll see that is still an advanced proficient needs improvement and warning model. This was the final year of that, so the current 10th graders will be taking the next generation 10th grade MCAS. And so we will not have Don, hey Don, we're not going to have historical data for grade 10 next year.
We're going to come up with something.
Spoiler alert. No, Skyla is.
Yeah,
I'm all set.
exactly, yeah.
Skyla's going to come up with it.
And I don't want to extend this any longer, but so next year, what legacy testing is remaining?
Science.
Is that moving in the direction of not being legacy?
It's online, but it's still, is it?
Is it
The new standards, you're right. Sorry, I lied. It's not
so
science.
next year, as of next year, there'll be no more legacy testing? Okay.
As of 1920
19, okay.
or 1819. 1819. So as of
18,
this
19.
year.
Okay.
Oh.
That's good news.
This
That's
year.
good news. Unless, of course, they change it in
Well,
1920.
because, you know, why not?
That's guaranteed.
It's changed 3 times.
I know.
Yeah.
It's been amazing. I know.
Yeah.
No wonder we're confused.
And I know the principals were going to get into more depth. I know we have a lot on the agenda. However you guys want to do it is fine, but I wonder, since we're moving in an alternate direction of giving you a report on our progress, how, you know, if maybe Mr. B could talk about the historical stuff a little bit, but I don't know how much, or if you want to just ask them questions.
I mean, I'll leave that up to the committee and obviously up to the, if you have something you really want to say, feel free to say it and report on it. As far as questions or requesting any more additional information or going through every slide, I guess I'll leave that up to the committee on what they want to do. So let's go one by one and according to the agenda.
This is like an Apple commercial over there. They're different Apple laptops.
Yeah, so
all different colors.
Feel free to come to the mic and report on anything you want, and then.
Oh no, I don't want to rush you at all. I just know that we had talked about a lot of this stuff.
Yes, yes.
It's okay.
Oh,
Don's
thank
just
you.
trying to make Chris run late.
Thank
That's
you.
kinda his-
Just so you can say, see, when I was chairman.
Oh, yeah.
Skylar's like, I wish I wouldn't have showed up on time.
Just take it. That's the whole thing.
I'm happy to start, but I don't have historical data because we have had so many different tests recently, from Park to the next generation MCAS, and now we have a new accountability system, so it is we can't compare it. So it's been frustrating at the Quashnet school level because we cannot compare historically where our school has performed. And I look at it as how we are teaching the standards, not necessarily how students are performing. It helps us understand, is our curriculum where it needs to be? Are we really meeting all of the standards and what students are expected to do? It is important next, and I'm glad that was brought up about science, because that is one area that, well, there's been a change in the standards, and the test has been reconfigured to have some of the old standards, some of the new standards, but we haven't been informed clearly as to which standards those are. They give us a percentage of the old and a percentage of the new. This year is the first year they have completely moved to the new standards, and that's what our 5th graders will be assessed on, the new standards only. And it will be the first time they will be taking that assessment online. It is a next generation piece. But at Quashnet School, one of the things we did notice this year is we pretty much mirrored the state in many areas. There are a couple things we were a little below on, a couple we were a little above on. One of the things that was I think a very huge success I was pleased with is in the category of not meeting expectations in ELA, math, and science. We were absolutely below the state, which is where we want to be. We want to have fewer students in that not meeting category. So that was definitely a win for us. One of the things I would like to see, however, is more of our students moving into that exceeding expectations. We do not have enough students in that category for ELA or math. It seemed like we had more in the partially meeting, so we need to move those kids, the middle kids, up, and we need to move those high kids higher. That was important. Science, we have historically outperformed the state, and we have done that again. And there is so much credit to be given to our 4th grade and 5th grade teachers, because it is a combined test for standards in both of those grades where they only take that assessment once. Another big win for us. Oh, yes.
So I know we're talking about, so the percentage of states, the state percentages.
Yes.
Is there a way that we can get that compared to I always forget the acronym, for the districts that are like us?
Oh, the DART.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
DART, yes.
I think so. I'm going to try right now.
Yes.
Because these numbers are statewide, Commonwealth-wide, no matter if the school is
Yes.
90% double lunch prices,
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Correct.
Absolutely. So
sorry?
when we do look at our overall performance, and this is progress toward in reaching our targets, Quashnet School came up with 71%, which is partially meeting targets. We needed 4 percentage points to get to meeting. It was very high. We're really proud of that. We do definitely need to keep on pushing forward. Absenteeism, thank you, Hope Hanscom, for shouting out about attendance. We need students in school. That's where they're going to learn. They need to be in classrooms. And out of 4 points we could have earned for that, for our lowest performing students in the non-high school, we had 0 out of 4 points. We need students in school, and we are trying very hard to make sure we have that attendance.
So,
yes.
Something that I hear from students like in the high school is that because of the rule with a certain amount of tardies you lead to a detention, sometimes if people know they're going to be late, they just don't come. Because if you're absent a few times, you don't get a detention, but if you're late a few times, you do. So they just skip the whole day.
Really?
Which isn't good for them, but like they see it's that they don't get a detention.
Right. That's good.
sounds like the way a teenager would think.
Yes, yes.
Makes sense to me.
You're not gonna say it, Jeff?
Interesting.
Noted.
Yeah, noted. Yeah, that's awesome.
So we do not give detentions at all at Quashnet for being tardy. We do try to intervene with the parents, and the biggest strategy we use, and I think it's really has been effective, is to welcome students. When they come in late, we are so happy to see you, and it is genuine. We are happy to welcome them into school and to build that relationship and get them in. So that is really very, very important. In terms of, as Hope was sharing before about the English language proficiency, we did not have a rating. We did not have enough. Our growth total was good. We had 6 out of 8 points we achieved for our growth. And overall, I think our student growth, as indicated on this assessment, was very good. Our achievement was different between all students, which was 7 out of 12, but our lowest performing students were 7 out of 8. And when we did look at the demographics and really broke that down, we did see some of our highest students with our highest needs really did very well. So that was an important piece to see, but attendance for some of those students was good too.
I got a
So
question.
it's really going to take some time to drill down further, but overall, I think we need to move our high kids higher and keep on reducing our students not meeting, but it was great to see that number come in so low.
I apologize for splitting hairs. I have a question. Lowest performing students is weighted at
62.5.
Yeah, we got 4 points out of 4 for achievement in math for that 62.5 weight, but 0 for all
0
students.
for
I don't
all
understand how
students,
that's
yeah.
mathematically possible.
Which I don't know. I'm not looking at what you're looking at. Sorry.
So mathematics achievement, for all students, we got 0 points earned. But for lowest performing students was weighted at 62.5%. We got 4 points, but I just don't understand how that correlates.
I don't either.
Because there was a decline.
Oh, right, because the other students did so poorly. That's like they didn't meet the targets.
So the other
brought it down. I don't know how you get to 0.
37.5% did really, really badly.
That's what I would interpret that as.
Well, I mean, that's significant, like, decline.
You
though.
only have to decline 0.5 scaled score from the prior year to earn 0 points.
Wow.
So
The
it
prior
was-
year's other test that isn't the same test?
But
I'm just
they-
asking. I'm not,
that's-
yeah, I'm just
No,
yeah.
they did do that for the targets. They did
Got
compare
it. Got it.
for the criterion, not for the
Oh, that's what you
normative.
Yeah.
They wouldn't
Hmm.
look at it for the normative.
Hmm.
Can I answer your DART question too?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Sorry. The data that I can get is from 2016.
Oh, okay.
So
Never mind.
because
Right, you
of all the
can.
changes
Yeah.
in whatever. So, sorry, Mary Kate, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, sorry, Mary Kay, too. I know I'm not answering specific questions.
No
stuff.
problem.
I just seen
One
your
of the
numbers.
other things we were quite happy about too, and of course we're always looking to do better than we are, but that accountability comparison where we are rated from 1 to 99 in the state, Quashnet School came in at 52, so we're better than half. Placed better than half, which was good. I was very pleased with that, and we can get that comparison. I don't have that with me, but I could get those town comparisons that came in around that 52.
It's not on here.
It's not on there. Oh, I feel better. Thank you.
I just want to say that I really appreciate the way that you characterize these results, and it's what I tell my kids when it's testing day, is you don't need to be nervous because they're testing the teachers, they're not testing you. You just go in and you do your best.
Absolutely.
And I think when we look at these results, I always caution people because they talk, it's not our kids, we're being evaluated like how we're teaching.
Well, it is definitely testing teaching, but it's also testing curriculum.
Yeah.
So it's doing both of those things, and certainly student effort plays into that. There's no question, but thank you.
I just appreciate the distinction.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Big brother's
So
up.
for
Can I just say one thing?
you may.
I'm sorry. I just have to share this one thing. I have to acknowledge Principal LaBelle because he is as interested in our data at Quashnet as we are. And that's going to make a difference. Because if our students are going down in certain standards or not performing where we want them to perform, we look back as well as forward. It is a cumulative test, especially in third grade reading. It is not just reflective of Quashnet and third grade. So I want to thank the Coombs School for all their efforts to help prepare our Quashnet kids in a better way, in a good way. So thanks, sorry. All yours.
I can say the same thing for Mary Kate and just how the vertical alignment of what we're looking to in planning years ahead has really been beneficial. In regard to the Mashpee Middle High School and the test scores on MCAS, I've included in your packets for you the grade 7, similar to the tables that Dr. Hanscom and Principal O'Brien shared with you. Again, we were kind of above the state in some areas, below in a couple of other areas, but what was great that in the areas that we wanted to be below, for the most part, we were. So you want to be below the state average, and the students who are not meeting expectations are partially meeting. Our kids in the 7th and 8th grade, dating back to the time at the Quash, they've taken so many different tests. They've gone from paper-based to online. They've kind of been almost test subjects, really, for this type of standardized assessment. So the kids have done a really great job adapting, and I really do want to recognize our staff and students for the effort they put into being flexible, to changing their approach, to revising and reviewing curriculum and pedagogy. That to me is really, really important, and is really helping our students to find success. If you look at the grade 8 scores, that also includes science. That is the last year that they will take the legacy. That's what we call the old paper and pencil one, the legacy MCAS. And the grade 10 information that you have is also legacy MCAS based. When we look at, and every year we do kind of comparisons to Cape and Islands districts, I know that we have DART in trends that we look at for other demographically similar schools, but we also measure ourselves against the local schools that are surrounding us in our local towns. And we were in the top 3 in every testable category in both high school and middle school level among Cape Cod and Island schools. So it's really important that we also recognize that for our students. I did give a quick historical for everybody to see for a grade 10. It's the last year that we're going to have this, so I did want to be able to share this with you. And I just want to caution a couple of things. One, when you're comparing year-to-year MCAS data in any grade, especially grade 10, you're not comparing the same students. So you've got students that are coming up that are entirely different set of needs and areas of focus, so on and so forth. So when we look at these trends, personally with our team at the middle high school, what we really look for right now is what we're doing sustainable? Is the work that we've done, providing supports and increasing achievement from year to year with different cohorts and different groups of students? And what's exciting, if you look at the grade 10 ELA, is that we were at 97% proficient advanced last year. We're at 97% proficient advanced again this year. So we see that sustainability. I also caution you on, when you look at percentages, 1% is one student in regard to ELA MCAS in grade 10. So when we look at the overall numbers of our kids, it's important to realize that it's not we have 20 or 30 kids that are in these areas. It's honestly 2 or 3 students, which is a good problem to have, and also a way to be able to focus and intensify our instructional supports for those students. I also want to recognize in our ELA scores that we had a 15% jump in advanced scores. So nearly 60% of our students in grade 10 were advanced on the Legacy MCAS, which is a nice jump as well, which means through MTSS, through problem solving, through taking a really kind of blended approach to what we're doing, in a team approach to it, we're seeing not only improvement from the pinks and the reds to the light blues, but also that light blue to that advanced level. If you look at the math, again, we look at sustainability. If you go back to 2015, we were at 77% of our students were proficient advanced in mathematics. Last year, we had a tremendous performance from our students and staff, having almost just under 90%. But this year, we kind of went again with 86%. So we're seeing improvement, we're seeing sustainability, and that's kind of been the focal point. As we get into the next gen, which will start this year, that'll be a whole other opportunity to look at data and evaluate our programming on such. In 2017, I'm going to give you an idea of how they established targets. We were at 97% proficient advanced in ELA, and we had a 99 out of 100 CPI rating, which is fantastic, and I'm very proud of for our students and staff. Our targets, as a result of that, are 100% across the board for everything to be achieved.
Okay.
So it's 100% proficient advanced. It's 100% in a number of categories. So we do strive for that. We continue to strive for that, but I just want to make you aware of kind of how that's set up. And the third is in high school science. The majority of our students, whether it be in grade 9 or 10, will sit for the biology MCAS. We do have a small subsection of students that may sit for very specific tests, including things like chemistry. But this is where the bulk of our students are at, so that's what I really wanted to kind of share with you. And we can see, again, in this area, we're decreasing our warning in needs improvement areas, and we're increasing our proficiency. And the science is one that, if you look back, at 75% just 3 years ago, to be up at 86% is a very nice gain for our kids and for our staff. And I also want to give a shout out to our chemistry program. We did have 7 students take the chemistry MCAS last year, 100% were proficient advanced. So we had no warnings, no needs improvement in those areas.
For 2017, is the number of students correct?
In science?
Yeah. 47?
Yes, so the way we stagger our MCAS, so students that are taking biology in grade 9 will sit in grade 9. Students that are not taking biology will take environmental science in grade 9, biology in grade 10, and sit for that test in grade 10. So it's an opportunity to provide students and put them in the best position to find success and be as prepared as they can to be able to succeed on those assessments.
Mark, I wanted to just talk about something you touched on real quick with the data on, just looking at a specific grade. Obviously it's not the same students. So if you were to care about this data and want to look at it, it's probably more important to look at historical data for that class.
Correct.
Moving throughout the process and where they grow throughout until they get to 10th grade where they take the last test. Where it is important to look at 10th grade as a whole year after year, it's probably more important to track. If you remember a few years ago, we had that one class that was struggling a little bit in math.
Yep.
And we kind of tracked their progress throughout and watched they were actually growing, even though they were still,
absolutely.
If you looked at it year over year, they're still kind of struggling, but they were growing, which is the important thing.
And that's a great question. And we do work with cohort data. There are reports within our analytic systems from the state, from DESE, that allow us to track cohorts of students, meaning when they take that first test in grade 3, all the way up through grade 10.
Yep.
I can certainly share that with the committee if you'd like me to share those reports. However, they're specific to students that start and test throughout their time in Mashpee. So if you have a student that tested out of state or tested at a different school within the Commonwealth, they wouldn't be counted into that cohort because they weren't the original cohort that sat for that initial test.
Well, and I believe that the students that are in the high school now, maybe you can attest to this, Skylar, are the ones that started with MCAS, went to Park, and then went to MCAS 2.0.
This is current 10th grade.
So, yes.
Yep.
So we
definitely compare that, but we have cohort data, and they did create at that time when Park was the one-hit wonder that it was. It was it was a test that they did provide us that information on. So we do have the cohort data, and they included that for Park as they try to have that algorithm to measure it to their current, at that time, the current accountability system. Okay. But we do check that. Yes, the special math. But we do check that, Mr. Chairman, and we follow those cohorts very closely.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Good. All right.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Dr. Anscombe? Dr. Anscombe?
So
Do
sorry.
you have anything else to add
Sorry,
on the,
no, I was
on
gonna
this
just
agenda item?
No, thank you for.
Just want to make sure, yep, I don't
think
want to.
he'll spin it up.
All right, so nobody else has anything on the, on this agenda item, on MCAS, anything to ask Dr. Anscombe?
No, good stuff, thank you.
All right, fantastic, we'll move on then, and our next item is finally our student representative, Skylar.
Can you make sure she gets a mic?
Yes, I will.
Good evening, everybody. So, 2 weekends ago, the play Pride and Prejudice performed, and that was a great success for the cast and the crew. The winter sports have started, basketball, track, and cheerleading. All teams are on their way into their seasons. There's great coaching and great student athletes. Girls basketball varsity won their first game last Friday. Track had their first meet on Monday, and boys basketball takes on Falmouth at Falmouth this Friday. There was an art and music showcase. There was visual and performing arts that put on displays, such as pottery classes, fashion design, and choir performances. And there was a great turnout by the community to show support. The seniors, Xavier Gonzalez, Cassie Baker, Adam Henschel, Maddie Egan, Allie Landry, Nick Story, Noah Telez, and Sarah McNamara spoke to the men's club. Last week, Mashpee Term 1 High Five Awards were given out to students who stand out in their classes by their teachers for academic and personal excellence, and the Term 2 is halfway tomorrow. The Mashpee Mentors in Violence Prevention, or MVPs, have been selected and have begun training to speak in wellness classrooms and meet on a cyclic basis in homeroom. The Project 351 8th grade ambassador, Katrina Mayen, has been selected, and she said she accepted and she'll be doing it. And I will be beginning my first year as alumni as part of the Regional Unity Corps. On December 2nd, I went to the Auerbach Center for the annual Alumni Summit, where we heard about the Playbook Initiative from Boston Celtics' own Brad Stevens, Kyrie Irving, and Jaylen Brown, as well as words of encouragement about knowing your why and knowing the purpose behind the project that you do from Steven Spalos, who works with City Year. The Mashpee Christmas Parade was last weekend, and there were many groups from the Cape and surrounding areas that were present to bring holiday cheer. So thank you all, and I hope you have a happy and healthy holiday season on behalf of the Mashpee Middle High School community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Skylar.
Thank you, guys.
Good seeing you. All right. Next, we have the approval of the minutes from the November 14th meeting. I will take a motion once you'll have a minute to look those over.
Move to
And
approve.
We have a motion by George,
A second.
second by Nicole. Any discussion? All right, Don?
Yes.
Yes.
Abstain.
Abstain.
And yes. So we have 3 yeses and 2 abstain. All right. To move on, next is the report from the business administrator, Mr. Paul Funk.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First thing on the business administrator's agenda is budget transfers. Your budget transfers, these are just to take care of the negative amounts within the, big negative amounts within the budget. I need a vote on this. If you have any questions.
Move to approve
motion.
transfer 19-02.
A motion by George, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. Is there any discussion on the transfers? Hearing none. Don?
Yes.
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 And yes. Unanimous? All set.
Now moving on to the budget to actual. If you have any questions on the budget to actual, I'd be more than happy to entertain any questions at this time.
I have 0 questions.
You have no questions?
No questions on the
Don?
budget, actually.
Nicole? George?
No,
Questions?
everything was
I'll give Don a minute.
rolling along.
First, let me ask you this, Paul. Did Don send any questions in advance?
Yeah, he did. I
He
did
did.
discuss some
Oh,
off
okay. Okay.
camera.
So, one of the questions that
Yeah, why don't you?
Yeah, so the question that I was asking Paul earlier was in regard to how stipends are handled and whether or not we're encumbering them that money has been spent. I realize that those are paid out in June, but if we know, and as Paul told me a little bit ago, those are earned pro rata throughout the school year, so it seems to me we should probably be encumbering those as we go.
Right. To just expound on that, I said we can do that. I can encumber them on my sheets. The town does not encumber salaries. So if you look at your salary, you just look at the cover page there, you'll notice there are no encumbrances for salary.
Mm-hmm.
But I can do that on the student activity, the activities that we pay for. It's not a big deal to do that. In the past, principals have come to me and if we've had extra money, and they want to run something in the second half of the year, not so much the first half of the year, it's usually the same principal every year. I usually wait and see what we have left. If somebody doesn't run an activity at one school and there's extra money, then I want to release that activity at the school.
How do you budget that line item?
We budgeted on recommendations from the principals.
No, I mean in the budget. Where's that?
Oh, where is it?
Where's that budgeted? Stipends.
Yep. It's broken down by schools. I'll show you. I'll just pick one. I'll pick the Coombs. Page 38.
Okay.
Handwritten 38. Sorry.
Yep.
And you'll see down the bottom, KC Coombs extracurricular stipend. So I can encumber that money. Now, a lot of times they'll make a recommendation, you're going to run these extracurricular activities. They don't get enough participation, and we don't run it. And they might run something else.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I guess my only question is, and probably mostly for Don and you too, is if we have a budget line item, why do we need to encumber it? It's budgeted. You spend it till it's gone, or you don't spend it.
Well, you don't actually see this becoming an expense until June.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, you should already know how much it is.
Right. I do have that. That's the line item that I just pointed out.
Right.
So I mean, if we have 12,000, whatever it is, encumbered for
that was
cases,
just
and I'm not
one
saying encumbering is bad.
There's a line item in each of the schools.
If you encumber it though, what does that do to us in June if you don't spend all of it?
Well, that could be left over. If we leave it out the way it is right now, that what happens is, let's say right now, we use half that money.
Mm-hmm.
We run two sets. So let's say I'll use the Coombs School. Instead of using 6,000, he only uses 5,000 because he couldn't fund that.
Right.
There wasn't enough. And then the second half, he only uses 4,000. Well, that's going to leave funds left over that if another school, let's use the Quashnet, wants to run an extra Lego class because they had such a large response.
Well, I get that, but does it change if you encumber it?
No.
It doesn't make any difference if we encumber it or not.
No.
For us, you can unencumber it at a stroke of a
Yep.
keystroke, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
What I would do is, as we run these, we track them.
Yeah.
So I know what's running. So I could encumber it, and then start unencumbering, saying, okay, they're running 2 Lego classes at $625 each. So I could unencumber that and show it as expended.
So the concern would...
So, at this time of in January, or actually at the February meeting, I can show you what we've expended,
Right.
even though we haven't paid it out. I can show that by moving it over to the expended part in my report.
So for Don, is it a comfort factor that we take any kind of expense that we really don't know the total value of until the end of the school year? We should probably have a way to make sure that doesn't get touched, especially the way we're attacking the budget now. When we're in touch, it's everything's fair game pretty much,
Right.
Well, it's more recognizing the expense that we're incurring it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, at the high school, we have a budget of $71,000 for stipends, right? And I don't know at this point how much of that's already been spent because it's already been earned. So, for example, any football stipends.
No, those are different.
Those are
Sports,
somewhere else.
those,
Are those being reflected current?
those are current.
Okay.
They get paid I believe it's three times.
3 times a
Yeah,
year.
3 times
During the
during the season.
Okay.
So they're already paid. So
this
that's
is
a true
only-
figure.
So this is only
Yeah.
true academic.
Yeah, whatever those
After
school programs.
So I guess it's not
After
reflect,
school and
sorry, Don.
Any shares, right?
Any what? What's the last-
Chairs.
Any
Chairs?
department shares?
No, that's
Those
not
are in a
there,
different
no.
place, too.
That's separate.
But is that,
That's part of their salary.
so it's paid, very good. Okay. I thought that was.
Could I just maybe make a suggestion in that, I'll use, going back to I'll just use the Coons. We know what has been, we can determine what has been run in the fall and winter right up until January. My suggestion would be to show that as incumbent, showing a balance going into January for the rest of the year, and then picking up in January or February, picking up what they're running at that time, and we can actually show that as expended too. So you always get to see if there's a balance, if we're projecting a balance, because they didn't run all of the activities that they wanted to.
I'm okay with that.
Okay? Any other questions?
So, are there any other line items that are not, that really technically aren't paid out to the end of the school year that we're not going to see a progressive
No.
decrement? Okay.
Does anyone have any other questions? Nope.
That was
All
my
right,
favorite
thank you.
question, Don.
What?
That was my favorite budget question from Don so far.
Yes.
Oh, it has?
That was a good
So
one.
far ever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a
Wow.
thought-provoking question. I like that. That was
Great.
awesome.
All right, thank you, Paul, appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
Okay, moving on to the revolving accounts. Are there any questions there? And also backed up by on the revolving accounts is your school choice. I keep putting in when we receive the funds from the state.
Thank you.
Any questions on the revolving? Moving on to the grants. We've received $138,000 in circuit breaker funds to date, FY19. And you know we always spend those in arrears.
Right.
Projected are going to be $555,000 this year.
All right.
Still a question, Don.
Ready? Does anybody got any questions for Paul?
No, sir.
No, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Mr.
You got
Chairman.
nothing else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, moving along. Report of the superintendent, Ms. DeBoer.
So in your packet, you have the principal reports for the month of November. I do want to point out that some of their highlights are included in the article that will be in Friday's Enterprise, which you all have a copy of. 406 students at the Kennedy Coombs School. We do want to give a shout out to Assistant Principal Scott Shepard. He was instrumental in organizing the Wampanoag celebration. I think that was the first week of November. It feels like it was forever ago, but it was. And it was really nice because it was sort of personalized with each classroom, more intimate, where they were able to ask questions and be up close with some of the things that the presenters brought. But Shawnee Turner did a great job. We caught a couple of those. Kobe Howerton and Shanoa Peters also contributed, as well as tribal members. And did you have one big final group thing?
Yeah, the final presentation on Friday. The activations we looked at about pieces of stone, and it was really amazing. I got a lot of feedback from the parents and the teachers that it's really a full understanding of the story. So we kind of did a lot with that, and then there was a presentation on Sunday there for the students participating.
What was this story, Scott? I'm sorry? Oh, Three Sisters story.
And also a shout out to the PTO and Rachel, how do you say her last name? Kosha. They ran the book fair, which also seems like it was a long time ago, because they also were very instrumental in last Friday night's Giving Tree event, which probably will be talked about next month. And then Ginny Milano, she's the school psychologist team chair at that building. She has an after-school club, which is one of those stipends, and it's called the Bucket Fillers, and it's really a great way for teaching leadership and community service to students at that age level. And they recently delivered socks that they collected to Falmouth Hospital. And then one of the big projects this month at that school was the potato storybook characters. We have put pictures out, and some of them are still remaining currently at the #WeAreMashpee site, but really creative, huge participation by families, and that's also written about so we can celebrate it in the newspaper. Any questions on that report?
So, just a quick question. How difficult is it to provide us with chronic absenteeism versus just in addition to general absenteeism?
So just, can I have that question again? I could not.
How difficult would it be to provide chronic absenteeism?
As an extra data point?
As an extra
I can
data
provide that.
point?
Yep, if you want that.
Given the importance that was stressed in the earlier presentations, that would be
Yeah, actually, I was working with Sean Maroney today because trying to get that data to be something easily that we can produce from Power School. That's something I was actually working with him because we wanted to make sure instead of responding monthly that we're actually responding weekly as those alerts come up now that we have them. So then we're not losing weeks of time before a family is notified. So, yeah, I can provide that.
excellent. Thank you.
So we can give a cutoff point based on when they do their monthly reports. In the article for Friday, this Friday is the 68th day of school. So anyone that has hit 6.8 days or more is chronically absent. That's the data we're going to provide you.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to say to Paul, I love this highlight. I loved how it was written, how it talked about the percentage of the school that participated, and I also loved how you talked about the expected and unexpected outcomes. And I just think that's a good model for our sister schools in the family. Because I just like the idea that, you know, there are some things you're trying to get out of this, you know, these big sort of school-wide activities. And so, did you write that? Thank you.
Okay, then we have Principal O'Brien's report, 503 students. And in both of the elementary schools, we had the two separate afternoon and evening conferences, and Principal O'Brien wanted to acknowledge her teachers and staff for how they prepared for those conferences and the professionalism displayed, and trying to make sure we continue to build that homeschool connection and really personal relationships with the caregivers of our children. And then she also wants to shout out to community partners who are generously providing holiday support. This community takes care of their children and their needy families in a way I've not seen anywhere else. And if you look at some of the things that have been delivered to Mary Kay School, and even through the Boys and Girls Club today, having rooms and rooms and rooms full of donated toys. But in particular, Barnstable County Sheriff's Department provided Christmas trees that were delivered to some families. The Police Department in Mashpee, Toys for Tots, Dino, Southport Volunteers, the staff. It's really an embracing feel for trying to make sure that our neediest children find some joy with the season, and we support our families as well. And some of her highlights, if you were at the Christmas parade, you would have seen, and I definitely, members here were there, actively involved, but the kudos to Jane Emery, who sort of came up with the theme. She kind of came up with the theme a year ago, and then it got rained out, but so she held on to it, but it was the sight to see as a coral reef, and the kids were really cute, and the singers, and I know that Dawn and Nicole were there, and Hope carried a banner, and Jamie was there, and principals Mark and Mary Kate as well, so that's a great event as well.
And they won.
Oh yes, and the Quashnet School had the most creative
Most original.
Most original award in the parade, so
Yeah.
that is highlighted in there as well. Big trophy. Big trophy. And any other questions on her report?
The pasta dinner, did that
Oh, the
get
pasta
postponed?
dinner. So the pasta dinner, which was scheduled for tomorrow night, I believe has been postponed.
It has been postponed and will be rescheduled. I do not have a date yet, but it will be rescheduled.
So,
You might,
We can keep the gingerbread houses longer.
I didn't even see them yet.
did you contact the Enterprise to get your column adjusted?
no, for today's, for the events of this. The 13th is not listed in there. But it's not going to address anything of the last 2 days. They won't.
No, not the last 2
Oh,
days.
what?
But the annual question at school pasta dinner and cookie decorating event took place last night.
So I will check. I won't be able to. When, yeah, that probably won't.
I'm sure Hannah can help you with that.
Anna, can you get that line taken out?
Yeah, well, it's a couple of it's a whole paragraph.
I'll text tonight too to the girl that.
It would have been.
Yeah.
It would have been
You
just
should
like
just put
it's
Adam, the
described here.
imaginary pasta dinner was spectacular.
Yeah. As with the imaginary guests.
I'm very
Maybe they
disappointed
could
I'm
change
gonna miss
the
it.
verb tense and.
Gonna
will
miss
be.
the future days.
I'll,
Yeah, the
I'll
future
send them
project.
your paragraph tonight, and hopefully they can. I don't
I
know.
can't
When do
go
you go to
anymore.
press on? Is there wiggle room?
They'll be grateful for
Yeah,
the
it's
lack
only
of
Wednesday.
paragraph.
That's right. It's only Wednesday. They have time.
We're all like, we don't know what day
We're
we're
We should-
shortening it by 6 sentences. They'll
Well,
be-
I was
they'll
told,
love
Mr.
it.
Shepherd said he'd hosted at his house. That's what he said, so.
Thank you.
we could do it.
I,
We did have 175 RSVPs, and we always get a little more than that, so it was.
Wow.
It was.
It's usually very fun.
and it has been very good. I'll fix that.
Good, all right.
Thank you, Nicole. And then you have any questions on Principal O'Brien's report? The report of the Mashpee Middle High School is in here with Principal Mark Belstracci, 719 students. Kudos to Elisa, we'd like to acknowledge Xavier Gonzalez and Devon Ford for being named Boston Herald All-Scholastic team members, as well as Colin Spencer in golf. And following up on what Skyla said, the fall production of Pride and Prejudice was very good. I do not know how they learned all those lines. It's very impressive. The students did a fabulous job. And then a couple of his highlights is the MMHS Science Department is working with the State Department of Fish and Wildlife Natural Heritage Program and the Barnstable Natural Resources Department on turtle population preservation. And at the Program of Studies night last week, if you visited there, you would see the actual little diamondback terrapin turtles. And they will be released in the spring after data is collected. That is also something that is done at Wash as well as Coombs. And so that's great hands-on activity for the students. And then some of the MMHS musicians and singers who auditioned and were selected for the All Cape Music Festival. That will take place on February 9th. I believe I put those names in the newspaper article. We just had several students compete last Saturday in the junior festival, and as well, I don't think that's in here, but one of the drummers, Peter DiFrancesco, they only picked one jazz drummer, or however the term was, for the whole thing, and Peter was the one chosen, so kudos to Peter. Yes.
I just wanted to say to Mark that we, after the honor roll breakfast, I was talking to Patty, and it's really a comment for the district, but just on the health and wellness side of things, I'm always looking for ways that our students can be recognized without food. We tend to organize, have parties around eating and treats and snacks and candies and all that kind of stuff, and I just thought, we're honoring academic achievement. I don't know how long we've been doing the honor roll breakfast. This was the first time I kind of remember hearing about it, but I just wondered has it always been a breakfast, or is there another way that we could recognize those students? Maybe have our Quashnet kids come over and perform something for them, or do some special, I don't know, assembly that isn't around food. I just was curious. I'm just putting it out there because I had mentioned it to Patty and we were kind of talking about it privately, but I guess I just wanted to make sure I said it publicly. I feel like I challenge myself to do that at home and with my kids and with birthday parties and everything. You know, we have, obesity is like this national epidemic, and we still sort of organize ourselves around, and I'm Italian, so trust me, it's like the way I was raised. But I talked to Mary Kate separately about sort of candy and the wellness policy at the Quashnet School, but as a mother, I just thought I'd raise it here. Sorry if it seems out of place, but thanks.
Any other comments, questions?
Nope.
Okay, and then you have
Those are all
the
eating
report from
cookies.
Dr. Curley from Special Education,
You're all eating
277
cookies.
students on IEPs. And if you read the paragraph above her chart, she's highlighting the course that Dr. Hanscom and Dr. Curley are currently providing to the middle high school staff. They had the first session on the half day on December 3rd, and there are half-day sessions scheduled throughout the year, and then next year they will be offering it, I believe, in a combined format on half-days to the elementary teachers, and it's very good. And it's coming from them having taken the inclusive practices course through DESE last year, so they could become sort of a service provider for the district. Good course. You have the report of the athletic director, Matt Treberry. There are several all-stars named there for the fall season. Field hockey, Cassie Baker and Kylie Harrington. Boys varsity soccer, Jack Daigneault, Chris Hutchenrider, Dylan Hutchenrider, Noah Telez, and Ethan Barr. Girls varsity soccer, Emily Franks, Samantha Kersey. In cheerleading, it's Taylor Rose. Golf is Colin Spencer, Kyle Puchel, and Jack Spencer. And football, Devon Ford, Xavier Gonzalez, Cam Kurgo, Nick Bartolome, Nolan Lyons, and Jack Vinitsky. And all teams did well this fall.
I work with Todd every night. It's awful.
In the personnel chart, you'll see that there was one person hired as a food services administrative assistant. That had been a position that was open for a while due to a retirement of Marianne Flaherty. And then we have 3 resignations. You can note there that our outreach coordinator is resigning, and we posted that position and hoping to get someone in. Her last day, I believe, is Friday, which is sad. And then current open positions are listed down below.
Do we need to discuss the outreach position? Is it that difficult? I mean, that's too.
I know. I meet with her weekly, and we have addressed some of the challenges, and we're just going to try to do the best we can to get to.
Yeah. Is it just finding the person for the right fit, or are we seeing them massage the job, or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Does it have anything to do with the hours that are associated with that position, being part-time?
I don't think necessarily for Lynn, that's fine, and we had found a retired teacher, Vinnie Nelson, was basically covering the weekends. What they both have said they can't. So we have it posted. We're hoping to find, in my vision of making it at least till July 1st, you know, if I could find like 2 retired teachers that didn't want too much, but know enough about Mashpee who would take it on. We did get the lease, you know, renewed for an entire year. I do anticipate probably more closed hours after the holidays, because it is rather slow.
Yeah.
It's not a store, so you're not going to have a lot. It's not like the concept of a store exactly. But it's a little challenging. Working on it.
I get that.
And total enrollment is on the chart. It shows at 1629.
Excuse me.
And there are 44 students at Cape Tech and a slight decline in out of district.
questions on that?
So the decline in out of district, did we find ways to meet their needs here? Or did they?
Dr. Curley.
So we had a slight decline in out of districts. Was that because we found ways to bring them back and meet their needs here, or did they move up districts, or? Okay. Oh. Okay. Gotcha. All right, thank you.
You have a letter in your packet that we wrote, the store M. Braun that used to be in the Commons. She donated, it's a pretty nice, some items to the store, and she was selling everything, but in the end she donated them to us, so we did send a letter of appreciation, and if you've been to the store, you can see a couple of the pieces. They're very nice.
She's awesome.
We're happy with that.
I'm gonna miss Modern Mix. That's why I go for all my shopping for Wayne. What?
So
Modern
next,
Mix.
you have
They just closed it down.
a chart that is showing my recommendations for adjustments to the current proposed superintendent's budget for FY20. You see the total at the top, which is what we currently submitted to the town manager. And then we've made some adjustments. So there have been several staff members who have decided that at the end of this year, they're going to retire. They weren't eligible for an early retirement incentive, so there was no requirement that they tell us further ahead. There still could be others that, surface. But based on just what we know, and looking at what they were in at the budget and what we would feel comfortable putting in for their replacement, we are reducing our proposed personnel budget by $152,102. So that brings it down to that new number. And then on the operations side, that is currently the $4,847,503 is currently what's in the budget submitted to the town. I am proposing that we reduce the $200,000 included in that to $100,000 for the curriculum that we're looking at for the elementary level for ELA. And then it says in the chart, if the following CIP technology requests are funded, then we would remove these items from the operating budget, and they were funded at last night's CIP meeting, which I'm going to go over in total. So those would be coming out, and that results in $4,630,503 as the new operational side. And so the new revised budget for FY20, my proposed budget, is $22,726,919 for a level service budget. And my recommendation, and I believe that was what the recommendation of the finance working group was as well, was to use $355,000 as an offset from school choice. And that brings it to $22,371,919, which would be the appropriation we would be seeking from the town. And if you see down below, it's a 4.6% increase over our FY19 budget. So I guess we need your input.
Real quick, at the working group, the budget that we discussed was not a 4.6% increase with your decreases. It was more
Right,
like 3 point something.
Right, and I think I had an error in how I was looking at last year's choice money. I was not comparing apples to apples.
Okay.
So these three items, the Chromebooks, interactive board systems, and teacher PCs, it's not that they're not happening, they're just being funded through CIP.
Funded through CIP, and when we talk about that on the budget, on the agenda, I can share, so that what is being recommended to the selectmen for their approval, coming out of the CIP committee, they've approved this.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And I have to be able to put in my narrative into the newspaper for publication on the 20th. Let's see, what's this? It's the week from Friday. So I have to put it in by Monday, is usually when I submit things. And so I need to know what it is you want, or else I'm going to submit it as that it's my budget, which it still is because you haven't voted. But I want you to know what the 17th of December.
When you say your narrative,
so it's required under the charter that a sort of a summary version goes in the newspaper.
Right.
And it's very numbered. It has a lot of the numbers in it, so I want to put, I'm either going to stick with what's currently there, or if you're looking at this and saying, this makes sense, we would support you in that, then I would adjust what gets put in the paper. Because on the 2nd is the public hearing, correct, on this budget, and then you vote on the 16th, so anywhere between what I am proposing and what you end up with, you can, but I feel like what should go in the newspaper is what I'm proposing, and I really feel that this adjusted number is what I would want to put in there.
I guess I was asking, is any of the literal narrative, what you assembled for the town?
Oh, the packet.
Yeah, the packet. Is there anything of that explanation that accompanies what goes in the newspaper that would describe your rationale for what you're requesting?
Yes, there is some narrative that goes.
Okay.
It's not just a numbers chart.
Okay,
yes,
good.
Yes.
Yeah. And you obviously worked with the working group on coming up with these numbers. And
Yeah, the only thing the
I
working
know.
group was not aware of when we met was the adjustment to the personnel side.
Yeah.
We had discussed that.
Yeah.
Because it just sort of evolved.
Yeah. My only concern with this is that this is significantly higher than what we discussed, by at least a percentage point. So what we agreed to pass on to the school committee was a 3.6% budget increase, but like you said, there was an error. So this is new information for me. And I can't tell you if while we were sitting there we would have said that that's an acceptable increase or not. And also didn't include the $152,000. So clearly there was a fairly significant $300,000 error somehow.
Yeah, so the 3.6 from my notes from that meeting was over the FY19 level service budget. But when I was working with Paul, we were looking at this, something was wrong with
The way you were
looking at the school
comparing,
of
you were
choice,
using,
the funding.
you weren't comparing apples to apples.
One probably had school choice in it, one probably didn't have school choice in it or something like
I
that.
would
or-
imagine
Yeah,
I
she
went
took
for
the-
the lower one.
Yeah.
Right, she took
in
the
order to
lower
not have
figure,
such a big-
compared it with the.
I mean, because I'll be honest with you, for me personally, and I'm not speaking for George, in the working group, we probably would have had a much longer discussion about this because 4.6% increase is probably a harder sell than 3.6%.
But when you look at from the bulk being personnel and the fact that the majority of people who are employed in the district are getting a step, which.
Oh, I'm not saying we can't defend it. I was
No,
just
I know,
talking
I
about
know.
at the working group. This was, this is new information now, so we would have.
yeah, it definitely hits harder.
Yeah,
Given
yeah,
the
yeah.
percent,
Yeah.
but if you look at the numbers, don't change. You know what I mean? Like the bottom line number is the bottom line number.
It's actually less than what we talked
Yeah,
about,
yeah.
the bottom line
It
number.
is.
Yeah.
But when you, but of course,
But the percentage.
but of course,
yeah.
the thing everybody talks about.
No,
is
they're talking about the percentage, yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
I understand that's
Yeah.
going to be harder to swallow, but the number is, yeah.
I'm not saying we
And
can't
that's
defend it.
what
I'm not
concerned
saying we
with,
can't
yeah.
advocate for it. I just wanted to be full disclosure that the working
Yep.
group has not seen that percentage. That wasn't what we saw. So.
Well,
Cool.
I was just going to add that the last time I saw the budget, it was an 8% increase. So to me, it looks a lot better. So-
Yeah, but did we submit the 8% to the town?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one that went to the that's the one that went to the
Just-
town manager and got into
just-
Munis, right?
Just into that small
Yeah.
group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we went back and we talked about,
But it wasn't really submitted to the town manager because the town manager knows about these decreases already. So,
Not all of
Well,
them.
when we talk.
except for this salary side, right?
He does know about because he said, well, what can you, that was when I think he just met with me,
Yeah.
what can you do? When we talked about change the adjustment in the curriculum request, he said, the CIP piece, the only thing he didn't know was the 152.
Yeah.
And I did ballpark for him that my recommendation for school choice would be 355, but it was not necessarily what you would recommend.
Yeah.
And he did mention in that meeting about reducing, people retiring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And after that meeting, we got a number of retirements after
Yeah.
that meeting, so.
I would just
kinda
respond
looked
to
at the whole
Nicole to
picture.
understand that he knows it's not an 8% budget. He
No, he
knows
knew
that
it wasn't.
that it's going to be.
Well, but I'm just saying.
That there's
that's
already
where we
been
started.
deductions.
That's where we started, and his strategy, because we need that budget, is to get CIP to fund some of the capital that was included, which, so I'm very comfortable that he's a part of this, and that even this number, it's a welcome reduction, and it's not going to be a surprise to him, you know,
Oh, absolutely
sound
not.
outrageous.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree, he'd like 3.5 better, but we are where we are. So, I mean, it looks right to me. And, you know, maybe you guys should have another meeting and see if we get some more retirements.
Oh, jeez.
A lot of them came in after the meeting.
Yeah.
Don's got something on his mind, I can tell.
Well, I guess I'm still looking for the projection for the out years that has been promised to this committee.
You got that, sir.
again, it's the thing
The projection for the out years.
Oh, the 5-year plan.
Yes.
You got the 5-year plan.
You got the 5-year plan. We gave that out
It was in a
Way back.
Fine.
August.
way back
White
when.
line.
It was
Gave a
the, you
binder.
got 2 books. There was
Yeah.
the
Maybe
current
he
year
wasn't- was he
budget
there then?
and a 5-year
I
plan.
don't remember. I don't remember. You might have missed the meeting.
I have copies of it, but I
Oh,
know.
okay.
I can get you a
We'll
copy.
we'll make sure you get a copy, Don, yeah. That's,
Yeah, I can get you.
And then the assumptions are in there, but what we would have to do is, it was built off of, you know, what was some known years, and as we move through.
Oh, yeah, I mean, now we'll just update it, we'll have to update it with whatever
Yeah.
we can update it with your superintendent's budget and update it again with the approved
So
school committee budget.
could we have that updated for the budget hearing on the 2nd?
Oh, heck yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
that's easy.
So with this particular,
It's gonna be
so,
even better.
Yeah, if we can get back in the office.
so discussion on her moving forward and submitting this information to the newspaper. Does anybody else have any feedback on that, or any, do you disagree with it, or have any comments or questions?
I would leave out
Obviously,
the
we don't vote on it,
355
but
at this point.
What's that?
I would leave out the 355 at this point that we're voting on, and just leave that as the superintendent's budget.
So the 22,726,919. Higher number.
So you're suggesting going with the original number?
Well, no, not the original, but the one that's.
See, the only problem with that strategy, George, is that this is this request over last year's request.
Gotcha.
It says nothing of what we actually got. So if you look at this number over this number, then this percentage is gonna be a lot higher.
I mean, if we're, if we're in, I guess, I don't know, it's hard to say if we're in agreement because we're not voting on anything. Last year when we did the budget, I can't remember, did we present the budget to the public that was school choice offset?
I believe so.
I believe we did, actually.
I believe we did.
Yeah.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Clear.
So,
It should be apples to apples.
And that's where we get into that we should be presenting some of these things to the CIP rather than putting them in our budget. And that's why it came up at those meetings. I think George was at those meetings that we should be using the choice money on your operational budget.
we should be using our choice money?
That's what it came up.
Aren't we?
We are this year,
Yeah.
355,000.
And last year and the year before?
We have to use it.
Yeah.
The way we
Mhm.
built the budget, it's gonna be, we're gonna start to see as we get into January, February, halfway through the year, I can get better projections on it. Where I'm gonna have as
Yeah.
possibly
Yeah.
a surplus, I'll call it, in certain years.
Well, for FY19,
For
we
FY19.
don't have the CIP in
No, we did not get CIP in.
There was none.
there is none. So this is the first time we've really been doing it right, which is asking for this to go through CIP.
But we've always used the choice money to cover those.
Right,
Mhm.
we do.
And you also, George, what you're saying, you believe 23, what's it, 23.7?
22.7, 26.919.
About anybody else
I
takes on that?
disagree, but
Don?
I'm not hard over on it. I think, I defer to Patty, but I think, putting, if the superintendent is recommending using $355,000 of school choice funds to offset, some of our budget needs, and that is a 4.6 increase over what we got last year, which, well, that's right, because the number we got last year doesn't include the school choice fund.
It's just whichever way we want
Yeah.
to frame it.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you. I mean, I can look at it both sides. This is her recommendation.
Yeah.
So you put it in the budget, or our recommendation last year was also the non-school choice budget number, and it's the I mean, it's exactly the same increase. But it's 355,000 last year and 355,000.
I guess I would. My recommendation would be, if we can find out how it was framed or worded last year, and just frame it, word it the same way. Just use whatever number correlates with however we did it last year. That would be my recommendation.
Why?
Just so we kind of stay consistent.
But we're doing everything different and better this year. So if we're
Not
doing
really.
it different and better, we should do it,
We're doing it different.
better.
But
Dare
we're
you
really
say
not,
that.
because we're still incorporating school choice, which annoys me and I hate it, but that's the conversation for another time.
Yeah.
We're still doing that.
I just
So-
think anybody looking at it that's savvy is going to go, "Where's the choice fund?" You know,
Yeah.
like, why aren't they using any?
I'm
choice
I'm
funds?
comfortable
That
with
came up last
yeah.
night as well. I feel like if it's labeled correctly, and normally they put a box, so I think we have to pay, it's like a paid ad type thing. If it's clearly mine and there can be a note that the school committee has yet to
Yeah.
vote on
Yeah,
this
that's fine.
budget, then,
Yeah.
because, you know, whoever is gonna read it in the paper, we want, you know, the
Yeah.
opportunity to be as positive.
I support you. If this is your recommended budget, I support how
Yeah.
you want to present it. That's just me personally.
Anybody else?
I think it should be realistic, so.
Yeah.
You know,
There's no reason to be shady about it, because you're right. The second that we don't have the word school choice in any of our budgets, we're going to get asked where school choice is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's not.
And it's not.
It is not.
Bathroom and all.
Yeah, exactly. We
up
doubled
by
our
a
school
million.
choice money. Yes.
Okay.
All right, well, there you have it.
So next on is just to make you aware that we did go through the legal requirements to trademark our Mashpee M blue, the Mashpee M white, hashtag we are Mashpee, and the phrase it's great to be in Mashpee for you and me for us. So we now would have the ability to counter anyone that wanted to use that. Oh, did I not go over that yet? Sorry, CIP, okay, skip that. All right, so you have the CIP chart. And last night, George and I, and also Matt Treveri were there. And I'm going to read from the other chart, but the total accrued for the schools is $402,000 from CIP. And so the security upgrades for all schools was approved. The numbers you see on that extra chart, when we had the first meeting last week on our schools, in the end, they basically said, well, what would you most want first? So we kind of ranked them again. And so ones were our priorities. So they funded the $110,000 for the upgrades. They have funded the $125,000 for the auditorium.
Yes.
Nice.
The $25,000 for cafeteria lighting, which probably could be done in multiple ways. We didn't have a firm sort of quote. They shifted that to the next year, but we'll see what we can do on that. The $100,000 for library upgrade at this school has been shifted to the next year. And the Quashnet Gymnasium has been shifted to the next year. They really want more information on what kind of floor we would want in there, what's really the problem with that area as well.
The essential thing is we didn't have hard quotes to go with, so.
On the field study, that was taken out because they voted to move forward on a $25,000 sort of design consult.
30, not to exceed 30.
Not to exceed 30. Because this goes into the artificial turf field, which is on the DPW side. But basically, they want the artificial turf field for football, but they also want to do it right. And so they asked Catherine to come back last night with numbers to do baseball, softball, and sort of a multi-purpose field. And in doing that and talking to Matt Treveri, you want to make sure you lay everything out correctly for the sun and all of that. So they want to spend the money, and then what the overall feeling was, they would come back with a combined number for all of that for the following year. Was that what you got, George?
Yeah, they're also going to make it a special article on the Maytown meeting so that it can be done effectively right after the Maytown meeting, is to let the contract for it as opposed to waiting till July 1st, which should speed the whole process up in terms of getting a contract and letting it for the following year.
So I guess I have a concern in regard to, this is all great, but this has never come in front of this committee to.
It did.
Yeah, it did.
It did.
When?
Once or twice, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All this stuff was spoken about and discussed, huh?
It just wasn't
This
ranked.
exact list.
Exactly.
The exact list.
The exact list was there, but it,
The artificial turf.
oh, yes,
sorry.
that's true.
Ooh,
Well,
scared
That's
me.
what we were just
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, sorry.
Well,
Are you talking about the CIP list?
Yes.
No, I'm not talking about it. The artificial turf.
Oh, that is
I
true.
mean, this
That
is
is
all
true.
moving forward
That is true.
Without any discussion by this committee.
Well, I mean, and I think largely because it's really DPW. I
Then we
know
do
it's
even,
on
yeah.
school grounds, but really, we don't have any purview over that.
Well, we've had
We
some
were-
conversations, I did not see, prior to getting the black book that has everybody's CIP, did not know that Catherine had put 1.5 million on for artificial turf. We've had side conversations. They talked about in the construction and the planning and construction committee that they go over her list, but I've gone to many. Years ago, I saw the chart. Recently, I had not seen a chart where you see multiple things about the schools. You see generators and all of those things. So other than side conversations recently, and I did know that Catherine went for community preservation money to replace the track. That wasn't necessarily a conversation we had. She's pulling that because that would be part of the project. But even, I think, knowing, like last spring when they redid the tennis courts and the basketball courts at the high school, wasn't something that she had conversation with me about. She just determined that they needed to be fixed.
So she made the determination they did it without consulting you.
Not quite true. Not quite true.
true?
No, that came up at the Wellness Committee. That subject was raised at the last Wellness Committee meeting.
Which subject is it?
The artificial turf.
Oh, okay.
The whole thing about artificial turf. Catherine at that point said that she thought it would be extremely difficult to do because the town manager wasn't in favor of it. What happened is that I stayed out of it and it moved forward at warp speed, so that we are now at the point
We're ready to issue it.
we're ready to issue it. Yeah, so it's got to go back to the Wellness Committee because it was a discussion there, and that'll be on the next agenda item before it comes forward to the school committee.
You
But
mean
it ha-
the district wellness committee?
District Wellness, the District Wellness Committee, yeah.
Well, it would come before you, that wellness committee, in terms of the material?
Yeah, there's a big question on the material. There are
Yeah.
some
of
materials that are
options.
used that are, there are a lot of options, some of which are cancerous or could possibly be cancerous. So that's going to be the big,
Yeah, the older stuff, the
newer stuff,
Is
the
fine.
brown pellet or something like that is supposedly a lot healthier, but I need to do more research on that myself. There are 4 different articles. But at any rate, I
But-
stayed out of it, so it went forward pretty quickly.
Just, George, when you do have the next, when any of the wellness committees focus on that, the athletic director should be in the loop.
Yeah.
He needs to attend those meetings.
Will
since
do.
He has a lot of data from other districts on that.
You're
I'll
right.
admit, when I read about it in the paper,
That was the first I heard about it, too.
it was the first I heard about it. I was like, this is weird. This doesn't even come to the school committee. And then
Right.
I'm like, oh, it's because we don't own the fields. They're DPW. And then I saw Catherine's quote that the cost of new turf fields is basically equivalent to what they pay in maintenance on the grass fields. And so, but I was kind of surprised. And what I had said to Patty was, you know, I'm not in favor of turf fields over all these capital improvements that we need elsewhere in the district, and I'm really pleased to see that we are getting an upgrade to the high school auditorium and getting all these technology upgrades too. So I think that's our purview.
The other thing too is these items that were not put on this year's budget. Those items, the town manager said, it's not that I'm against them, it's just that we need more information on it before we can go forward with them. So there's an openness there to accept the other items that are on here, with the exception of the study, of course.
Yeah.
As future items as far as the capital. We were asked specifically by one of the Board of Selectmen members, is this it for capital? Do we anticipate anything more coming down the pike? And
You mean this year or for
no,
the next 10 years?
next 10 years, that type thing.
Did you hope you said no?
I foresee a boiler in our future. I don't know. What about you?
I was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was,
Oh, yeah.
Well, because we had nothing going beyond this first year, probably with the intent that things wouldn't and we'd push things, but we said there is no guarantee, that we don't know for sure, but at this point, we feel that this is a pretty solid list of what our needs are.
And they saw the reoccurring like kitchen and technology stuff, right? Yeah.
Include the kitchen.
Yeah.
So just to keep going down the list,
Oh,
the
sorry.
study of the fields is off. The kitchen upgrades at 25,000 is approved. Chromebooks at 36 approved. Interactive whiteboards approved. The wireless overhaul was approved at 25,000, not 100. But that was based on conversation with Sean Maroney, who was present at this meeting where he talked about these items. They approved the 56,000 for the teacher PCs, and the 130,000 was getting shifted to at least FY 2021, which Sean had a conversation as well when he presented, and that was something that he had ranked as a 3 when he, if you look back on this other chart, so that got shifted. So our total is 402,000.
So basically, these numbers don't mean anything in terms of what was approved. There's 1s, 2s, and 3s. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, no.
Okay.
But the ones, I mean, we got the ones.
All the ones.
Yeah, but did we get the improved cafeteria lighting for the high school?
No, but the part about that is we put it in as 25,000 because that's the CIP base. I mean, there are different things we could probably explore that would help that are part of this. You know?
Okay, you said that. You said that the cafeteria lighting wasn't in. Okay. But the
Yes,
library
I did.
upgrades?
The library upgrades is pushed
Okay,
until this next year. And again, that was also like, well, this, we talked about this sound issue.
Yeah.
The carpeting is original to the building, and just sort of the whole revamping of this space.
Okay.
It was also a total amount that they had available to spend, they being the town.
402.
No, the total amount, 1.4 million.
Yeah,
This-
total-
yeah, this is
the
just
total
our
that
stuff.
they approved is 1,412,692,
And so
of which we have 482.
we did all right.
That's a pretty good deal. Yeah.
That's very exciting.
Hey, I got a question about the security upgrades. Does that include our bollards?
She never got back to me on the quote on that.
Don't let that wither on the vine. That's a big deal.
I'm gonna throw 2 in near my sign too.
I'm gonna. Yeah, exactly. Just put your sign right there with the stuff on it.
So no one can drive into it.
That's probably a good idea. Yeah.
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 Oh, are we talking about like oh,
She
for
was
high
supposed
school
The
to-
security,
stuff too,
yeah.
I'll follow up with Kathy on that. Okay.
I don't want to beat the field to death, but just to go back quickly on what Donna said, as a resident, as a single member of the school committee, I would say if they don't make that multi-sport, if they ask you or Mark about it, it shouldn't happen. That
So
field
the-
needs to be multi-sport,
Yeah,
not
so-
just football.
So the field will be football, lacrosse, field hockey, lined, they do
Yeah.
initiate samples, but one thing that the perspective of one of the members there was, we need to sort of ride the coattails of the football team, and also merging it all together. You're gonna get people that say, hey, yeah, I want that for the football team. They're not gonna say, hey, I want the baseball, so it's gotta be together, which was, I think, a good way of looking at it as a package.
Yes, has to be.
And also wanting to be fair to other athletes, that they're all on the same level as
Mhm.
our
Playing
eyes,
for
they should
each
have the same opportunities to have a great facility. You know, baseball is just as important as football.
Yep.
It's just baseball and softball.
Now, what
So-
happens
So
here?
the wellness committee will be looking at this and reporting out then
Yes.
subsequently.
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing is, I don't think we've mentioned it, is that the total cost is estimated at roughly $5 million for all of the fields and all of the other
That
stuff.
was a very high estimate.
High estimate, but
That
at any
had a
rate, that,
look.
we have to go to the town, not town meeting, we also have to vote on it. So we've got to get out the Quashnet in the middle high school and all the rest of the, out there rallying the troops and bringing them to vote.
Well, so when we do it in May, and we have all of our 18-year-old registered voters who attend the high school and their families, they're going
Yes.
to learn how town meeting works.
Yes.
But this turf
Jeff will
is
donate the money.
only for MMHS. There's no field improvements for Quashnet?
No,
No.
not that.
Okay.
There was some talk about doing every field in the town, but that got to be astronomical.
And the 5 million was capped, I mean, Matt had a slightly lower one based on what the feedback from the other towns who have put in multi-purpose fields and baseball and all of that. That's probably better to know on my side. Just to say.
Sweet.
Okay?
All right, trademarks. You all set? Covered that?
Yeah, I think
Is
so.
there more? Move to adjourn? Are we still?
No, look what's next. It's exciting. Look.
It's 7:45, we adjourn.
Lots of
School
stuff.
committee member handbook.
Yes.
We've been waiting a long time for this.
6 pages of it.
Very
All right, so
exciting.
rest of my report, I'm not going to, we're moving forward with a lot of things with the tribe. We have a course that's sort of almost finalized for the high school teachers, and we've had various tours of various groups lately that have all been very positive. So we'll go to the next specifically on this night.
It's on unfinished business. And where we got the school start time?
School start time. So that is looking for you to vote as a committee to, instead of having the high school day for students be 8:30 to 3, it needs to be 8:20 to 2:50, just to allow a little bit of extra.
So this is exactly what we talked about last meeting, which is now set to vote on.
Start at the last meeting.
Yeah. All right, so does anybody have a motion regarding that, that item?
I have a question.
I have a question.
So, do you want to
Go for
move
it.
first? No,
I
I
would-
don't. No, I don't want to move.
Okay.
I don't want to move yet.
I don't want to move yet either.
Something bothered me after we left the last meeting, that the homeroom was 12 minutes. I had it in my head that it was 10. And so I think when I suggested that we move the start time to back 10 minutes, it's because I thought that was the length of the homeroom. And I just wondered if it made more sense to start at 8:18 so that it doesn't.
No.
It doesn't
I
matter.
speak for-
No, it doesn't affect us.
no.
Our schedule will focus.
You don't care if it's wacky and numbers and all that
Well,
stuff.
homeroom could be 10. It doesn't have to be 12.
Oh, okay. All right. Go ahead, George. I'm done.
Well, we've gone over this school start time for forever, at least 2 years. We have open meetings, we have studies one way to the other, 19 ways to Sunday. We voted on it, and we haven't even put it into effect, and we're trying to change it. Why was this not discovered? It seems to me it's something that could have been easily discovered while we're planning this thing, as opposed to having to go and vote for it again. It doesn't make sense to me is that it's taken 2 years, and now we're finally discovering that we need to adjust what we've already told the parents of the schools of the times that we're going to be using. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Elementaries are staying the same, so it's a 10-minute shift in the high school, and it had to do with probably being a little bit more optimistic on the tightness of the bus run between the middle high school and the elementary. I look at what we do on a half-day, and it's doable. But then when we were meeting with the bus company and everyone else involved, there was a little bit of a discomfort. And I don't know exactly why they're quicker on a half-day than they are on the other days.
The discomfort was just in the PM.
But
Yeah, it's only in the PM.
It's only in the PM because you guys are only giving us, by the time the buses leave the high school, it's not, we don't have that time to get back. You know what I mean? Now, we haven't even left the high school yet.
But that still isn't answering my question. Why wasn't this discovered when we were going through all of this? I understand, you rode all of the buses to see the schedule and all the rest of that, and that didn't come up as an issue while you were riding the buses?
I don't know that I was consulted. I don't know. I mean, I don't remember that discussion.
Well, I think I understand what you're saying, but I think, as I recall, as a parent in the district, a lot of focus was which direction to adjust the times. And so I think this is a classic where the rubber meets the road implementation question that was not answered. You can't answer that until you have
We've designed a plan. We figured out how we're going to move the students from one school to another, how we're going to use the buses and all the rest of that. We worked that 92 ways to Sunday, and we were told these were the times that were going to be used as far as the school start times, school dismissal times. Now, we haven't even put it into effect, and we have to change it. And
Thank
I'm curious
goodness.
as to why.
Thank goodness we figured it
I think
out
a lot more
before we
focus
put it
was
into
on the
effect.
morning. More focus, I think, might have been put on the morning at the time, George, than on the afternoon.
It just seems incomprehensible to me, sorry. We should at least have open meeting for the public to discuss this, to bring their inputs into it.
That's what this is.
what we have.
Yeah, we're actually in an open meeting.
Yeah, this was, we brought it up at the last meeting, and this was tagged for a vote.
The way I understand it, and obviously, you know, with me not being in favor of the whole thing originally anyway, but I mean, this is something we are moving forward with, and we are going to adjust. So when you make any plan happen, as you're implementing it, there are always adjustments. If you're not adjusting as you're going along, then chances are that plan is not a very good one.
Well, a plan is just a list of things to go wrong.
Exactly, right? So you gotta be nimble and adjust as you work through that progress. And to me, that's the way I looked at it. Now, if this was like a 30-minute or a 45-minute change, then I'd be right there with you, George, saying what the heck's going on here. But when we're talking about a 10-minute change adjustment to, you know, we knew the buses were going to be an issue. We knew that from the start, that was going to be the number one thing we were going, other than before school and after school care. Running those buses is going to be our number one issue. So I think, in my mind, this is a fair assessment and a fair adjustment. Just in my mind, I'm one member. To the whole situation, but that's all I'll say.
The majority of parents as well, in terms of the high school, they are the ones adjusting from a 7:30 start to an 8:30 start. So the pushback or negativity from what the parents would experience should be minimal, because they've already, grudgingly, some people, adjusting to the 8:30, so now it's an 8:20.
So I recall when we were looking, when the school start time committee was looking at the busing and the capability of us to be able to get through this, and there were going to be some changes that were necessary as far as routes in order to be able to accomplish this. So I guess my question is, did those changes take place, and as a result of even with those changes, then we're determining that we're not able to make it, and we need this extra time?
Well, we did put some changes in place. When Mrs. Laker wrote all the buses, there was some consolidation of stops with the idea of trying to reduce the amount of time students were on a bus. And then there were a couple other, like there were 2 buses that are not used on the high school run. We'll put in, we pay for them anyway, we'll put in to alleviate a lengthy run. And that's why you often see a bus with 8 kids on it, but the purpose was to, that's already in place, even though we do have a lot of stops that people are resistant to give up, and in the end we tend to try to accommodate. But I don't know, I mean, we did look at routes and ways to consolidate, because we want to make it as tight as we can. Many bus routes could easily accomplish what we have in our original plan. There's just a few outliers that are a little bit
we have a really long way getting out of the high school.
The other thing is the lights.
The light there gets stuck in 5 minutes.
Oh.
It's coming from the
Oh my God! So can we go ahead and talk about that? Is there
we have talked about it.
Was there anything?
We asked for it to be adjusted, and they can't do it. It's
Well,
a state road.
Well, it's a 2-year. There is a plan.
Old Barnstable is a state road?
151.
151.
The lights.
So the lights on. Damn it with the road 151.
We've tried. We've asked.
But hear me out. And I want to shut up for a minute until Don's done talking, because this is something on that I want to talk about real quick. It'll take me like 2 minutes.
Go for it.
Okay.
No, I don't want to mess with Don.
No, go ahead, Don.
No,
go ahead,
no,
Don.
go ahead, because I think I've made my point was, this was looked at.
Yes.
It was noticed to be an issue. There was a plan to address that issue. And what you're telling me is that once we executed that plan, we still didn't accomplish the goal.
Well, the recommendation from from our provider was we could really use 10 more minutes.
Exactly.
If we had 10 more minutes, we know that this is going to be smooth.
Well, the real time, I mean, the main thing is safety. So for real time, with all kinds of weather, lights, traffic, we'd rather not have them be late. So, because if they're late, getting out of here, then they're late for the elementary. So the recommendation was let's add, we got 10 minutes. That's where it came from.
And let's also remember that the bus routes change every year. Every year they're adjusted, and having that 10 minutes gives us flexibility moving forward, 5 years, 6 years, 2 years, any year.
We didn't even get a year. And we're
Exactly.
changing it.
Well, you gotta go all the way out to Secaucet Island, that takes you a long time.
Yeah.
But the
Then
bus,
up along the
I'm
square.
gathering from what you just said there, that the bus company wasn't involved in these discussions when we were doing the planning?
They were this year.
Well, I mean, when we were going through this for the past 2 years, we didn't involve the bus company in the planning?
We gathered data on the length, the actual length of routes.
But the bus company wasn't consulted as to what they thought about this before we voted on it?
The recommendation from the school start time committee was, I think, to shift the other direction. We ended up going, so when...
I'm asking a question about the bus company being consulted while we're going through all of this. Because obviously they're the ones that are prime in this. Were they consulted as to, is this going to work?
We are the bus company because it's the collaborative, and so the person who knows everything more than any person at the collaborative about our bus routes is Kathy Whitman, and she was consulted. She knows every route, every lane, everything about them.
Were the bus routes different 3 years ago, Kathy?
Every year they're different. We add on, we take off, we have to put another one on over there. We've got, every day it changes. Every day there's somebody new coming into the system or leaving. So it does change.
So we're making a guess in regard to what it's going to look like.
Come next summer.
But we're also putting a buffer in there as well, so
That's what it
you
is.
don't want
It's a
to
buffer.
guess 3 minutes and then it turns out to be 6.
Exactly.
So by putting that buffer in there gives us some flexibility.
And I did bring up
the other direction too.
True.
Right? And we'll find out the
and some bus runs don't need the full amount of time. You'll see them, they don't all take the full amount of time. They sit on the few that are the longer ones. And to the 151 lights, there is a project 2 years down the road that the state is involved with that will allow for the lanes and that you get a chance to turn when it's your turn instead of like taking your life. And then the other piece was I asked Catherine, the exit from the high school that's down towards where the sign's going to be, it's sort of an emergency space. You see it during the 4th of July. If they could just pave that, any bus that's going to go out and turn towards the commons wouldn't have to even go through the lights. Could we not channel them out that way? And she thought that was a doable idea as well.
Well, yeah, so here's what I don't understand. So Old Barnstable, the painting on Old Barnstable, the left lane at Old Barnstable and 151 is straight right, straight and left, and the right lane is right only. So every single person trying to go straight's got to wait for the left turners. So you're trying to tell me that Mashpee can't paint the right lane as straight right and the left lane is straight? I'm sorry, the right lane is straight right and the left lane is left.
That's the way it should be, yeah.
So right now, the left lane is straight left. So every person that wants to go down Old Barnstable towards Quashnet has got to wait for every single person that wants to turn left down 151. All the people that want to turn right towards the Rotary can just go.
No, I know.
Now, if we change the right lane on Old Barnstable to straight right, the people that want to go right can go right on red, and the people that want to go straight when it's green. The left-hand people are going, not blocking anybody. That's not a state thing. That's our road. I don't know why we can't paint that.
And even the people coming at you from Quashnet direction to turn towards the commons, I don't think they have the right of way to the person who wants to go straight.
Say that one more time.
They do not. If you're going straight, you have the right of way.
You have the right of way.
Yes.
Well, it depends if there's a turn arrow or not.
Well, if it's just
Yeah. So, right.
I'll mention that.
Yeah, I was curious. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't understand it because you sit there.
Also, you have to pull up to the line when you're not going to trigger.
Oh, okay.
It's a trigger thing.
So,
You don't-
I mean, the number of people that need to turn left on that road, that should be, I know. Now going into the school I understand that's a 151 state thing. And I don't think that, I mean, I don't know, I'm not a traffic engineer, but one would think that the change in those lane markings would not affect the timing of the light or anything.
Yeah.
All you're doing is just changing what people are going at what time, because the people are already going left, so they could still go straight. You follow me? So they could still go left, and the other people could go right and straight. So it's, I don't.
I love your idea.
Thank you very much.
Does anybody have a motion?
yeah, exactly. Okay, sorry, motion.
But I do love your idea.
Yeah, I
You need to
apologize.
take that
I
somewhere.
guess one last comment on this. Have we done an analysis on the problematic routes? Because it's just a handful.
Yeah, we have done that many times.
Of what it would cost to
We have a big bus going for one child.
Yeah, a big bus going for one child.
It costs the same, right? Oh, you can talk about that.
Yep. But
Because
that's a
we
bus
use
we
the
own.
extra bus for the high school run.
Right.
Get that child out on Secaucet Island, because they don't want to ride on a smaller bus, because they put kickback on that. And that was our solution, so that it wouldn't delay all the other children.
Kickback from whom?
Kickback
From whom, I'm sorry?
Parents.
Oh, come on. That's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
Well, the cost is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
We
renting
had
a
that
bus.
extra bus, when I say extra.
I'm not
we
talking
just
about the
one
cost, I'm talking about the capacity.
run. So we have looked at all those, honestly,
Yeah.
Don, up and down and around.
Nicole?
I'd like to move to accept the change to 8:20,
And we're
beginning
still
of school
always
year.
working on it, you know what I mean? We're
2019
still
to
always looking at
2020.
better ways.
We got a motion by Nicole to
I'm sorry.
approve. No, no worries, Kathy. Do we have a second? So it's a motion to approve the time change. Any second? I will second.
Oh, wow.
Any other discussion? So seconded by me, Kathy.
I honestly would like to see some more thought on this before approving a change, so I'm not in favor of it at this time.
Anybody else have any discussion?
I only have one thing to say too. I know the first time we did the school start time issue pre-Nicole, you know, my number one complaint and my number one caution is voting on this prior to the plan being in place. You know, we're implementing as we go. I get it, and I support, the democratic. But I just don't want us to go down that road here where we're making multiple changes because we're changing the plan as the year goes on. If we need to hold off, we need to hold off. If we have a plan, we have a plan. This has got to be binary. We're ready to go, we're not ready to go. It can't be implement and then hope for the best.
So are you suggesting that we vote on any potential modification to our start times as part of the implementation plan?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I was just cautioning the same caution I put when we tabled this the first time, is that we were voting on something that had no plan. And we voted on something before that it was better thought out just based on age of discussion. But we still really don't have the plan. We are designing the implementation while we should be implementing, not having a plan in place, having the implementation plan ready to go, and then going through like almost a sandbox of it.
I'm not sure I understand
So,
your comment.
I don't want to waste any more time with it. It's not important. It's not going to affect anybody.
Because I want to understand
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So are you suggesting maybe that so the plan gets developed, all of the potential changes get kind of put into one recommendation and we vote on that entire, is that what you're suggesting?
I don't know if that would help or not.
We have had, I've had multiple meetings on all of the categories. We just recently met with the school nurses to discuss medication and the impact. Other than the exterior framework of these times, everything else is really operational. It's not going to come before you as a vote once we plan what a school schedule looks like at the high school, when the lunches are, what a teacher's workday is, all of those things. Just the outer component, the skeleton, is what you approve.
That's true.
So how many implementation meetings have you held, Patty?
I would probably say
8?
8 would probably be the...
Okay, so I attended 4 to 5 of those meetings. Did anybody else attend any of those? Okay, so let me tell you that there were a number of things that have occurred at those meetings that were not part of the original proposal, that are added value, benefits of discussing implementation, real implementation now that we have an approved change, because before that, it's just theoretical. You heard Roxanne at the beginning of the meeting thank us for saying, hey, maybe the tribe wants to offer before care. That was not considered. Certainly when we were offering free before care to people, did anyone go to the tribe and think whether they were going to do something like that? They didn't. They are going to do that now. Boys and Girls Club is offering before care. Was not part of the original proposal, was not, in the framework. all these complaints about sports movements. The athletic director comes in with a changed schedule that he's already gotten all the districts to agree to for next year. That was not part of the original proposal. What was the other thing? I wasn't at the cafeteria lunch food meeting, so I don't know what may have been tweaked or changed. But I would urge my colleagues to see this as a pragmatic and thoughtful recommended change based on a thorough discussion with all the partners that has been happening over the last 3 months. And I've sat through 6 hours of those meetings. And I can tell you there's nothing knee-jerk or reactive. And, you know, Don, the meeting with the bus company I was at, the head of the collaborative was here. You know, there was no, maybe they could have had that meeting 2 years ago, but it wouldn't have mattered because we would have had to have the meeting again now at the school, you know, prior to the actual school year implementation to work out those details. So to me, this is us not approving this right now. It's just standing in the way of what the district needs to do to implement this.
So my concern is we're saying based on a couple routes that we need to adjust this for everybody versus figuring out how to address those routes, because if it's not those routes this time, it'll be some other route next time, and we don't want to keep changing this every year because of busing.
Well, we've never changed it any other year prior to us doing this, so
Right.
so I wouldn't see why after doing whatever move we do this year, whether we do it or not, I don't see why in the future we would have to. We haven't changed the bus schedule at times, and I don't know, as long as I've been in Mashpee.
No, and we haven't, so
We probably wouldn't have to do that because we're talking at each point, you know, we're no further out than we go.
I guess.
And it's more or less, there's definitely several routes that are very far out that need work and but there's also the other problem is there, as Nicole was at that meeting that I was at, that their concern mainly is if there's a delay. These buses that leave the high school, if they left at 3 o'clock, or was it 3? Yeah, it was 3, right? Then they have to be back to the elementary school in 35 minutes. That's really tight, really, really tight. Pickup time is at 3. They don't get out till 3. They get on the bus at 3. Then they got to get out past the light and the traffic, all these other things. Some of our routes definitely could do it, but some others it would be really like not a safe thing if they were rushing to get there.
So
Yeah, May, June, and September.
10 minutes was like
all the traffic.
Chris said a buffer, is what he was saying, like a safe buffer that elementary will be getting out in time, you know, high school, reasonable, getting everybody to from point A to point B safe.
Because they have how much time right now?
They have, right now, they drop off at the high school at 7:10 or 7:15, right?
They drop off at 7:10.
7:10, so they have till 8 o'clock now to get to their run, to the Washington school. They usually have like a 5-minute time to, you know, maybe do something they may have to do, and then go on, but they all get there about 8 o'clock. So they have right now 45 minutes.
And that's what they would have if we approved this, is they would have 45 minutes.
They would have,
Because it's at
yes,
35 minutes
exactly
now,
the
we'd
same.
be giving them 45
Which
minutes.
for some is tight. I mean, you're just making it. So it was one of those, on paper it looks good, but in real time, it's concerned for the drivers. You know, so.
And don't forget, traffic around here is pretty bad in May, June, and September, so gotta look at that too.
Get up in
Unless you
July.
get another whole fleet of
July?
buses, right?
Shouldn't be in school in July, hopefully not.
You never know.
They could, like, don't have to worry about it at all. They could start at the same time.
I've been mischaracterized really quick. So I was not intending to tell anybody that I need to have some kind of operation, some plan that we're going to vote on. I had cautioned this the first time we tabled this, exactly this kind of thing, that, you know, I understand there's a fine line between, you know, finding is just going at something 100% and making it work. I get it, you know, and that's not really how I'm made up. I'm more of a planner, so I'm trying to get better at that. My only caution was just, you know, we've already voted on this. We were told there was a plan in place and that we were going to implement it, you know, as voted on. I honestly don't have a dog in this hunt. I'm not going to go crazy over 10 minutes. I just, you know, I would hate for to see this become a snowball.
Yeah.
That there's then next, you know, a month from now, we've discussed something else that we should have talked about, honestly, before we voted on it, and now it's being brought up before the committee. That's all I was doing, is cautioning that, because I've cautioned that every single time, and why I was against it 2 years ago and hesitant this year. So.
Noted.
And I 100% agree with what you were saying. That's, you know, way to put it out.
But when we did this last year, we knew it was going to be 35 minutes at that point in time. When we set the schedule up last year, that was going to be the time frame, 35 minutes.
Was it ever set? I mean, it wasn't.
When we voted on the times of the starts and the finish, we knew at that point in time that it was a 3 o'clock to 3:25 or 35, whatever it was. We knew it was going to be 35 minutes at that point in time. Why wasn't it an issue then? And it has become one now.
Yeah, that's true.
We voted on it.
She's the secretary.
It's probably not a member. It's not a Kathy Whitman question.
Oh, you go right there.
She said it on the transportation meeting, but she's not been part of the planning of the whole change in start time.
So why wasn't?
I just requested from the chair to remove Kathy from this conversation. I mean, she's the secretary of the school committee, and we need to start talking over here to the administration. Yeah.
Sorry.
I love you, Kathy.
Not that we're discounting what you do, but yeah, I think we need our turn our eyes over here.
Yeah.
So.
I think we looked at the current year, so we look at 7:10 as when the kids are dropped off this year. They're supposed to start at Washington School at 8:15, but the buses are pulling at 8. So there's wiggle room, not only from when the buses arrive, but when the actual official start of the school day is, and when teachers come in. So I think we thought we'd have a little bit of play there that we could manipulate in a different way, but in the end, it's still, I don't want to set up any bus driver to feel rushed. I don't want to have to look at it year after year, because there's always going to be the short runs, because trust me, there's somebody getting a coffee because he has plenty of time and the other guys don't. It changes every year, there's variables, so I think that's how when we sat down with the company, they were actually willing. I mean, we were still sticking with the 8:30 start time, and they said, okay, we'll see, try to make it work, but you could tell they were a little uncomfortable with it, feeling that there were some, in any given day, it's just the pressure of trying to make sure the kids are picked up and arrive at the elementary schools on time is something that, from the coordinator's perspective at the collaborative, they felt a little, they didn't really say and then it eventually evolved to where they would have said they would appreciate 10 more minutes. So, landed at 3:20. But I want to assure you that I pretty much finished all the meetings and all the categories, not that there's something we might not have discovered as an admin team as well, but we really have looked at everything, and everything fits well with the new schedule based on the meetings that we've had.
I'm sorry, that's what we were told last May, or whenever we voted on this, that everything would fit well. Sorry.
Anything else, George?
No, I'm afraid, yeah.
No, you got any other questions or anything, anybody?
No,
We'll wait for Jeff to get back and we can do the roll call, but if anybody else has anything else, feel free. Or we can sit here in silence and make it awkward for Jeff when he comes back.
So glad you left, Jeff.
I think another thing to add while we're waiting for Jeff is that at the time that this was originally proposed, we didn't even have a homeroom at the Mashpee Middle High School. And so, you know, knowing that that was going to stick, that allowed us to push back the start to 8:20, not keeping with the intention of the change, which was to keep school start times, keep kids going into class at 8:30 or later, which is what we're doing. And to me, it just makes good pragmatic sense to be safe and give that cushion and know that we're still setting out to getting what we wanted to accomplish by the change. So I take your point that the administration didn't do all the calculus on, you know, the needed lead time between the routes. I just don't have the same anger about it. To me, it seems legitimate that until you actually sit down with the collaborative with a policy change that's going into effect, that everything's theoretical.
Well, why didn't we, I'm suggesting that we should have sat down with them before and put all of this stuff out there and got their impression at that point in time, rather than waiting till now.
Right, and that didn't happen. So I guess...
Now I'm afraid that there might be something else. Is there some other fly in the ointment, so to speak?
We ready to
Bee
vote?
in the honey.
I am.
Sure.
All right. Don?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes. Motion passes 4 to 1.
I was going to abstain from the first.
All right.
Let's make sure there's no more flies in the ointment.
You all set? Yeah, just move through however you want to.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
In the working group, financial working map, we've already sort of talked about. I wrote that we were sharing out above. Does anyone in the finance working group want to share anything additionally?
I can't remember. Is there anything that we did not approve, that we did not, like, said no to? I don't think we had any negatives that we need to share out. It really was just, we went through the budget as presented and talked about it. We discussed the change in the percentage. It is what it is. I can't think if we talked about anything else. I think we briefly like touched on CIP, but we didn't go through the list again.
We can go through the list. We can change it.
We didn't change anything. Yeah, I don't think we have anything to add.
Efficiency and effectiveness in the packet. Now, George, you brought some papers today.
I gave them to Gail for distribution.
Right, but did you realize they're in here? Did you change anything?
You springing stuff on me, George?
The ones you gave to
This
Gail
right here?
are in here.
The ones I gave to Gail are in here?
Yes, you gave her page like 4, 5, and 6. And when I saw her stapling, I went, well, what were those? And I said, well, I brought them, but they're the same that's in here.
No, this is not my 4, 5, and 6. Thank you.
Did you have additional changes that you made?
It was more in grammar than anything else. It was, we start out talking, thank you.
Thank you.
We start out talking on the first couple of pages about you as the new school committee, then all of a sudden we go to member and he, she.
They're stapled backwards.
Okay, so these are backwards, but on the last page, you are expected to attend. If you are unable to attend, you may choose all of that sort of stuff as opposed to he, she, and them.
Well, and I think if you remember from the meeting that we had, George, we had discussed that the beginning part of this was going to be more directed as like an introduction directed towards the member, and then the rest of it was going to be more like just a general, this is how a committee or our committee conducts business.
But it's still a member handbook, and I just feel strange referring it to he, she, when a person is a member, where you can say you.
Yes, I think at that meeting you said you wanted to bring that up at the point that you left. So this is, we only brought you the first 6 pages of the document because we wanted to sort of give it to you in chunks. And we did say in that meeting,
there's the hitch and the giddy up. The whole thing was 6 pages. So
it looks like 20.
I was like, what's up with this table of contents?
So if everyone is agreement that you want the tone to be more of the you, then
more
said,
personal.
George, bring that up, and then we would make that adjustment.
As opposed to what?
He, she.
Oh, okay.
He, she, member of the
You
member.
assume that the new member's reading it.
Yeah.
So,
because we're calling it the new member handbook, or member handbook.
I love it.
Can I bring up what the challenge was, though, that with it?
Of course.
Is that okay? Oh, sorry, I'm supposed to ask you because it was my challenge to his concern. Is that all right, though?
We already discussed at the last meeting that George is, never mind.
Well, no. My issue with it was looking at like number 5, 6. They felt weird with a U, like you should check your district email it felt like a directive as opposed to.
It should be.
Page 4. Sorry.
Yeah,
I don't even
page
know what I'm
4.
looking at. It was so late.
No, it's the same thing. I mean, you are expected to work with other committee members. So, yeah, of course we are.
You will not speak on behalf of the committee to outside. It just felt aggressive, and I didn't know if it set the welcoming tone of.
It's not welcoming.
Well, it's meant for new members that you potentially do want to welcome. George, I just wanted to fair and balanced add that side of it. So Fox was here. I had to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it looks really good from what I've read. I like it.
Yep, so, at your leisure.
I can't wait to
read
get to
both.
page 19.
I'm looking forward to the
That's yours.
acronyms, actually. That's my. Oh, what's page 19?
How to respond to constituent complaints.
Although I've never had one in my 18 months.
That's because they don't complain about you to you.
Yeah.
I get them.
So you've gotten some of that.
You're obliged
No,
to
I'm
receive
joking.
them, yeah.
All right.
So those are my inputs anyway.
So this is kind of like the policy committee. We're seeing the first blush, and then we'll get more of it, and then
So
we'll
if you
eventually
look at-
approve it in its entirety.
Right, but you want to look at the chunk. If you
Yeah.
have any things you'd like to change, you didn't like something, rather than looking at the whole document.
Cool.
The next time you'll go through the next,
Can I see the whole document?
all at once.
Yeah.
They haven't seen it. We haven't gone through it as a
Yeah,
board.
we
only
Oh,
got
okay.
through
Oh,
page
okay.
6.
Gotcha.
We're not just giving it to you because we don't.
We
think
do
we
have.
No, I understand.
We spent the whole meeting on you and he, she.
Jeff's like, I don't know if everybody else.
Yeah,
Maybe I can handle 20.
yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Scaffolding our.
We do have an entire document that they're going over.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
Understood. No, it's your working group. Do what you got to do.
Kind of doing it like the whole policy
Yeah,
thing,
got it.
just-
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
All right.
Where are we?
Okay, then on the stakeholder communication group, we do have notes that we took at the last, I don't know if either one of the members, I think it was just Nicole was there.
Yeah, I pretty much shared that out in my email.
I was unable to make it.
That's true.
I mean, Jeff wasn't there.
I was not there. So if we just want to make that
Yeah, I
publicly,
just wanna
publicly
make
state
sure
that one more
everybody
time,
knows
that
Jeff
I was not
at
at the
outreach committee meeting.
Just to share though,
At
one
the
of
date and
the,
time he suggested.
Yeah, exactly.
when Dr. Hanscom and I met with the town manager and the assistant, no, it was just the town manager that day. He really does like the idea of creating this sort of town-wide brochure about elected positions. And so where we would have one panel within the brochure, they would have more. He was going to sort of get that going on his end, and then we would submit our piece.
Oh, I love
to
that
him.
idea.
So
Yeah, that's cool.
that was-
Yeah.
He loved that idea.
That's
And
cool.
we also drafted questions for this year's particular 5 questions. I really
Family
cannot
survey.
speak, sorry.
The family-
Family survey.
Oh.
Family survey, I need to qualify it. We worked through the questions for parents' understanding of social emotional learning at that same admin meeting that we were on.
Yeah, so back up just for a second, because I want to make sure you guys all get this. We discussed, I asked them what they would like to have the special questions be that are sort of outside of the standards, and Hope suggested that they be on social emotional because there's an important corollary with the grant that we got and the surveys that are
yeah.
ongoing, so we have sort of a you say it.
Yeah, so I did,
Wrote a little intro.
according to CASEL, which is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, parents play an integral role in the development of strong social and emotional competencies for their children, and they can promote SEL by modeling behaviors and adopting practices that reinforce their child's SEL skill at home. So in order to ensure that families have the support they need to promote positive SEL skills, we want to survey families to obtain a baseline of their current understanding in this area and in the supports that they can access for their kids. And these data will help us to target programs to support families and will also help us as we implement current SEL grants and potentially seek additional grant funding. That one.
Perfect. That's why. And so at the next meeting, will we have like a draft?
I have it, so
We
yeah.
had some, we were working on those as an admin team.
Okay.
Tuesday.
And since we're talking about baselines, I think we created a baseline here too, that we realized that after 3 hours, the meetings pretty much fall apart.
I lost all language skills.
All right. Subcommittee or liaison updates? Any? None?
Policy was supposed to meet, but we didn't have a quorum, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I was under the impression that meeting was canceled yesterday.
It was, but Dawn didn't, I don't think we knew, and we didn't have.
Was it going to be in
So it
Quashnet?
wasn't that we didn't have a quorum, it was that the meeting was canceled. Just because Dawn showed up anyway doesn't mean.
It wasn't canceled. It wasn't communicated that it was canceled.
Well, it would have been in Quashnet. You would have been fumed out.
I was there with it.
No, I mean that.
Yeah, we were
Oh,
both
that morning.
illegally in this.
One would assume.
All right. Well, that leaves, moving on to new business, and we have the superintendent's proposed school calendar in your packet, and that will require a vote.
So we are proposing that the school committee,
It's always,
Finally.
it's always far too late in the meeting.
Yes.
so you have two calendars before you, one for
Oh,
FY
geez.
'20 and one for FY '21. We are proposing sort of going with the two-year approach, and you see the different dates designated. We did, or I did share this with the association president, and for the FY '20 calendar, they are not fond of having the two PD days separated in August. They would prefer the 27th and 28th. Other than that, they were okay, and they felt the FY 2021 was fine, but because we would be entering negotiations, there might need to be changes, but we would have approved a calendar before we would have finished negotiations, so that really is not impacting that. And this was developed by the admin team in terms of the placement of different PD days and the half-days, and you'll notice we did put graduation on both of them as well.
So as a standard practice too, was it also submitted to the teachers union for just
Well,
comment?
that's what I just said with the.
You
that's what I
did?
was just
I'm not
reading.
hearing anything
The
anymore.
association president, this is her email giving me the
Oh, okay.
feedback on them.
So you're not going to group those two PD days in August then?
No, we actually, from our perspective and from we liked them separated.
So they're separated this year and then together the next year?
They're only together the next year just because of where Labor Day falls, and the fact that we are allowed to bring teachers back as early as the Monday before Labor Day, and not wanting to start students as late as that in order to get the two PD days in and still give Friday off before Labor Day, because that is in the contract. It would have to be the 2 days lumped together.
Okay.
And so I like 2021. 1920, I guess, I don't understand why, well, one, I don't understand why we have the 27th off, why we don't have it the 26th and 27th, and then have students back on the 28th and 29th.
28th is Thanksgiving.
In August?
Oh, I thought you said, I'm sorry. I'm looking at November, my apologies.
That's what happens.
I didn't know
when
what
we-
it was.
Woo, I know.
3 hours.
I was
that's
good.
the cap.
I was good for a while. Now I've done spun out. Sorry, Don.
George, let's go. Adjourn.
If you want to move Thanksgiving, that's okay.
No, I don't. I'm good where it's at. Sorry for the interruption. Yeah.
Totally different.
It's Indigenous Peoples' Day. Come on.
Yep.
No, that's.
No, that's
October.
That's
That's October.
That's October.
And there we go.
That is October.
Yep,
We're
there
off.
we go. We're off.
Okay, anyway, so back to.
Yeah, I don't
1920.
understand.
I guess I'm struggling with why we're continuing to wait and have the students come back after Labor Day.
So the reason was combining two difficult changes to adjust to in 1 year. So we have our change in school start time starting in 1920, and this community is used to having, it seems to, well, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, likes having their children start after Labor Day. There is something that they see as that. So to have the two, the only reason why is we didn't want to put the two changes in the same year, because
Sorry, we did do that 1 year, didn't we? Was it 1 or 2? We did it.
Given
I think we did.
Given that the rationale of having them start before was in 2021, was that those 2 days were days to help get the students and the families acclimated to school. I think that's even more important if we're going to be changing the start time, because, you know, there's, unfortunately, George, there's going to be kinks that are going to have to be worked out.
I think also the difference where Labor
Don't
Day.
get them started.
Labor Day is so early in 1920, and Labor Day significantly, you know, later in 2021.
Yeah, I kind of assumed that's why you were doing it. You know, if it's not until the 7th, we don't want to start on the 8th.
Right.
No, no.
But it's the 2nd this year.
So is that a showstopper for you, Don? Is that something you don't, or you just inquiring?
Well, what was amazing to me is when I go to June,
Yeah, I know, I looked at the same thing.
we're basically getting out the same day.
Yeah, how's it possible?
How's
Because
that?
Labor, well, yeah, Christmas break, and also, but because of the Labor Day piece, you still are getting, you know, that 1920, you're ending on the 17th.
It's the long one.
Yeah, it is the long one because of the way the holidays fall.
Yeah, there's 8 days of Christmas off in 1920 and 7.
No, there's 8.
I know, believe me, I can't see any.
2021.
Yeah.
Oh, no, there's 7.
5,
Right.
6, 7, 8.
I mean, I don't know that families are wed to that, having that last week off. I heard complaints that there weren't activities because everything was shutting down that last week, and parents were wishing that the students were back in school again. So I'm not. I guess I'm not convinced that that's a big issue.
I think that's going to be one of those 50-50 things, and half of the people want it, half of them don't.
Is there a timeline to have this approved?
No, this, you can ponder on this.
Do we have this
Do we
scheduled on
want
the,
to?
where's my agenda?
It is scheduled to vote.
Can I make a motion to table this, postpone this until the next meeting?
Second.
All right, motion and second. Any discussion on tabling this till next meeting, till January?
I'm sorry, postpone, not table.
Postpone, yes, postpone. None? Don?
Yes.
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 And yes, thank you.
Next time, let's do that before we talk about it.
So logical.
Yeah.
I didn't know, the more I looked at it, the more my eyes went cross. I had to,
Well, I would love someone to just call me. I remember last year, I was pretty new when this came before, and as a school committee member, I'm ever like, what am I supposed to be looking at? I mean, what do I know what the calendar's supposed to look like? I just don't, I don't even know how to comment on it. But then Dawn just gave me an example of how to comment on it.
I do have a quick question. So the half-day PD days, are those contractual by date or just by number? So how do we pick the number?
We've basically sort of gone on past practice, but we try to looked at what we thought we would be doing around each time, and when we'd like a half day to look at benchmark data or beginning of the year data and things like that. You know, next year's half days are pretty well laid out for elementary in terms of what they're going to be doing. But high school's pretty.
And they don't, those do not affect total academic time, correct?
And reminder that we do them on a Monday because we do have the staff for an extra amount of time. That's one of their Mondays.
That's right.
Okay.
For an hour?
All right. So next we got the NSBA Annual Conference in Philadelphia on March 30th through April 1st. I don't know if you have any information on when we need to register that by or anything like that.
I went online, but if you access the site, we can have Gail reach out.
Yeah.
I went online to see sort of what was going on and.
What is NSBA?
National
School Board Authority Association.
In the almost 5 years I've been on the committee, I haven't been to one yet, so I'd like to.
Registration is in December.
Okay.
I went to the one in Boston. It was really good.
All right, well, while she's looking that up, we can move on.
Okay.
The discussion on conflict of interest.
Oh, yeah, I'll make this, yeah, I can, we can table, or postpone this to the next meeting. This wasn't a selfish line item.
Oh, okay, now I know.
Yeah, this wasn't a selfish line item. I mean, I'm not here to talk about me recusing myself. I'm a big boy, and I'll recuse myself when it's necessary. I have some concerns with what's been going on in the town with respect to the planning board and people being called out for talking to their constituents by various members of the select board, by the town clerk, and by the newspaper. And I'm just saying right now that if a constituent comes up and talks to me, no matter if I agree with them or not, I'm going to talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
And if they have, if they agree with something that if I agree with something that they're saying, that's my prerogative. If I think that I'm conflicted because this person, for some reason, holds some kind of sway over me, then I will recuse myself. So I just wanted to bring that up, and I don't know if we need to check and make sure that we don't know something we know, because as far as I'm concerned, the comments have been completely out of line for an elected board member to be told that they can't talk to a constituent. So that's all my
And that
had
is
to say
actually
about
in
that.
the handbook.
Hey, it's in the handbook.
It's right in there.
Page 9.
It's finally got page 6.
TBD.
So that was my only comment. I mean, I'm not concerned about me. We know
Yeah.
that I'll scream and yell and then walk out with my tail between my legs.
Well, we don't have to postpone it because you just talked about it. We can just add it again if you
Perfect.
want to.
Perfect.
There was one thing I should bring to everybody's attention. In CIP, I was asked what the school committee's position was on the turf fields. And I said, I cannot speak for the school committee. I can't speak for
That's right.
myself.
And that's correct. Good job, George.
And the registration information is
January 11th.
Jeff supports.
January 11th, okay.
He did say January 11th.
He did.
No, January 11th is when you have to, for early bird registration.
Oh, sweet. Okay, that's plenty of time.
It's
Okay.
in Philly.
So just look up all that stuff and probably get back to Gail.
Cool.
All right. So lastly, and this is on here for a vote, but it's got to be a first read because.
Well, I think I would request that we defer this because this is what the
Yeah.
policy committee was supposed to
Okay.
review.
Yeah, I was going to ask, has the policy committee looked at this?
No. Okay.
Okay, so they can't vote.
Because we didn't meet because the meeting was canceled.
All right. Can I get a motion to postpone this?
Let's not go through
Motion to postpone.
Motion by Nicole to postpone, second by George. Done. Yes.
Point of order, you have to, when you do a postponed motion, you have to give a time frame.
Postponed to the January 2nd meeting.
Thank you very much.
Well,
You have to
make
amend.
that in my.
Yeah, somebody has to
Yeah.
amend the
I forget
motion.
your motion.
I think Nicole did.
Nicole did.
I think I made the first.
made the motion.
Okay, so you want to postpone it
to
till?
the January 2nd meeting.
Thank you.
And then George was second.
Second, I'll
my
second
agenda.
the amendment to the postponement motion.
John?
Yes.
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 One sec. Between now and January 2nd, I don't know that the policy committees will have met unless we cram one in next week or this week. Do you think we can both do that?
We can postpone it again if you don't.
Okay, sorry, I just
Well-
don't think there's a way we're gonna meet.
Wait, can I adjust my motion to make it the 16th? Or the next January meeting? Yeah, whatever that is.
Second 9 would be the 16th.
What is it, Paul?
16th.
It's the 16th.
16th. Would you like to amend your motion from?
We can amend it.
Well, we said January meeting.
Yeah.
You didn't say any specific date.
Yes.
So
Wow,
it's
you
the
were
same
ahead of the
motion.
game.
16th.
You've been on this committee a long time.
Yes, and luckily I had not voted yet, so I'm going to say yes.
Sorry,
Thank you.
Oh, no, that's
I do
good.
not want to
It's a
meet
good call.
right on before.
All right, next,
Need to do that roll call again.
why,
Because
would she-
technically, we all voted on the original amendment, January the 2nd.
Oh, she amended to the
She
16th?
amended the 16th, we have to do a re-roll.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll just do a re-roll call on that because you amended it to the 16th from the
Yeah.
2nd?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
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 And yes.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right, thank you. All right, if nobody else has anything else, does anybody else have anything?
Move to
Speak now, or George is going to motion to adjourn, which
He
you just
already
did.
did.
Motion
Our
adjourned by George.
7:45 adjournment is
Second.
8:55, not bad.
Seconded by Jeff.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And yes.
I don't lose my agenda.